Hello, everyone. Welcome to the May edition of the monthly patron and member live chat. So we have right now 11 people watching, which is very good to start with. Before we get started, though, some things we have to iron out. So it's become apparent to me that not all of you are receiving the emails that I send out with links to videos and chat links like this one. And this is because what I do is I keep all of your email addresses in a Word file. I don't feed them through an automated email blast list because I think that that will make you vulnerable to spam. So I just keep them in a Word file, and anytime I want to send an email to people, I'll just copy and paste all of those emails and then write what I want to email to you. The problem with that is apparently Outlook has a limit of 500. Now, the solution is easy. I could just, send 2 different emails. However, as of late, it seems like those that are after 500, I don't know, if you're at the top of my list or the bottom of my list, you're getting cut out. So if you're not receiving the email links, then I am incredibly sorry. I will start sending out 2 links. And I noticed this because there were a couple of videos this week that I sent out that didn't get any views. Now, part of that is because I could have just been an idiot and forgot to include the link. But another issue could potentially be that it's just the link is blocked and it's cutting you out. So I'm not 100% sure. So I will look into this. So just know that if you're not receiving emails, I am incredibly sorry. So it looks like we have someone that joined on camera. Hello to you for joining.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, going really well. I like your avatar. Is that Dig Dug from Pokemon?
It's Doug Drio, yeah.
Oh, Doug Drew. Oh, right. I always mix that up. That's awesome, though. That's awesome. Welcome. Let me go ahead and actually, before we go any further, I'll post the link so you guys can get on camera in the chat, because I didn't provide that to people through Patreon. So that way they have the ability to enter on camera as well. And basically, I don't have anything planned. I usually try not to plan anything because I want this to be just, totally up to you guys. We can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. There's a little bit of a delay. So when I see the comments coming through, you're going to see me answer. And I think it's like 10 seconds or whatever. So we'll just kind of work with it. So currently we have Blake in the chat, Eric in the chat. And we have Charles. We have Eric Flores. So let's see. So Balthazar says that he's not sure how Hangouts works. Yeah, on mobile, I'm not sure because I never do it through mobile. I know that you can join the chat through mobile because we have some people do that, but I'm not sure if you can still watch and read the chat at the same time. So that is a little bit tricky. I'm not necessarily the most tech savvy person, and I think people who are a member for a long time know that because of all the technical difficulties we have during live chats. So Charles says this is the first time you've got an email for the member chat. Okay. So, yeah, a lot of people are not receiving emails, Charles. So I'm not sure if you were here when I first started. Whenever I copy and paste your emails into my address bar, it has been cutting off the number of people. So I can only email 500 people at a time. And apparently I've surpassed 500. I don't know how long that's been the case, but certain people have been left out. So what I'm going to do now is just start sending different emails of the same email, but so that way people can get the emails. So, every time I get 500, I'll just send a new email. It's a pain in the butt, but I don't know how else to do it because I don't know of a good automated thing to use that would not spam you guys. And I absolutely despise spam. So, I wouldn't want to do that to you guys. So, hey, thanks for coming on camera, by the way. Really appreciate it. A lot of people don't necessarily like to do it because, depending on how much people are on, it gets a little bit intimidating. But thanks for joining me. You look familiar. Were you on the last one too?
Yeah.
You were? Okay. That's right. What was your name again?
Nick. I think that was whenever I was in Washington last time. Now I'm back.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Well, welcome. Good to have you. So let me see here. So we have 9 people on right now. Most people end up watching afterwards, but hopefully we could make this a fun and exciting show because there's always, there's no shortage of things to talk about on on the live chats because there's always something going on. Okay, let me do a. Give me 1 sec here. I'm just doing a pop out chat. Okay, so now the video that I'm uploading now to YouTube as we speak, or I'm uploading it to Facebook. I just made it live. I don't know why that one didn't. I think I might have forgotten to include the link to you guys, so I am super sorry about that, by the way. If that couldn't happen. So Richard says here, I'm on the YouTube app and on a bus between NYC and Boston, so that works. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Hey, well, Balthazar, if you want to join, we're happy to have you. So, how have you been, Mick?
I've been good so far. I've been traveling a lot for work.
Have you? Right on. What do you do?
Hello?
Hello?
All right. I work for an architecture firm, and I basically work in hospitals, so I'm a contractor.
Nice. Right on. Do you like it?
Yeah, it's a lot of
So,
yeah, I bet traveling is tiring. I know that.
I'm out almost every other week. My last trip was to where was I last? Baltimore. My last trip was to Baltimore, and in 2 weeks I'm going to DC.
Wow. Yeah, so you're all over the country then. That's kind of cool, though. I'd imagine that it's kind of like bittersweet because traveling is cool. You get to see the country, but at the same time, you know, having a social life and whatnot has got to be difficult.
A bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also a lot of time away from my girlfriend. So.
Yeah. That's got to be difficult. That's got to be difficult.
Yeah.
So what do you think about everything going on this week? I feel like compared to last week, this isn't too big of a news week thus far, but we're finding some pushback against Democrats with the Russia story. I noticed Nina Turner had a segment on CNN where she kind of talked about how, you know, sure, we can investigate this, but people are still worried about the real issues. And I thought that was awesome. And I think it kind of catalyzed this debate about whether or not Democrats should or shouldn't focus on that. And the video that I posted that you guys didn't get to see yet basically talks about this internal struggle right now among Democrats about how they're not sure if they should focus on healthcare or Russia for 2018. And I don't know about you guys, but anytime I hear the words Russia now, I want to fucking go crazy because I'm so sick of it. I don't know if it's the same for you. It's true, Mick. Regardless if you agree or disagree with the story, but I know that it's probably...
Yeah, I'm with you and Kyle on the whole Russia thing, how it's blown out of proportion. Democrats are just flinging mud at a wall and hoping something sticks.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And, you know, to me, the thing about it is, at this point, I've said something that I tried to refrain from saying because, like, every time I talk about the Russia story, like, people actually accuse me of being a Kremlin agent. Like, I'm not even kidding. So I try to choose my words very carefully. I'm done with that. This time I just straight up said, you know, on the video I posted, I don't care. Like, I don't give a shit about the Russia. I don't give a shit about the Russia story at all. If you're really worried about foreign influence in our elections and, you know, in our political system, why don't you talk to Saudi Arabia, who has 50 registered lobbyists trying to influence our government, or talk to Israel, who has, you know, organizations that buy off our politicians. I mean, let's talk about that. You know what I mean? It's just, it's so frustrating because all the issues that are really important, like, I mean, net neutrality is just gigantic right now.
Whoa.
They're being completely ignored.
That's weird.
And it's killing my soul. Oh, hey, how's it going? We have, are you, Ibon Kim?
Yes, I am.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Great. How are you?
Doing good. Welcome. Glad to have you. We have another person
Thanks.
that joined too. What's your name?
My name is Sebastian, aka Balthazar.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hey, well, welcome. Thanks for joining the chat. It's really nice to have everyone in here. And thank you all for joining with me because it's a little bit redundant if I'm just talking the whole time because I kind of just go in circles knowing me. So I think you guys do a great job at keeping me grounded. Ibon, I know that you recently, I don't know if you just started your YouTube channel, but you've gotten a lot more active on YouTube, which I think is great. Because I've
Thanks.
been telling every single person, we need everyone to create channels if you have something that you can contribute or think that you can contribute, because it's so important right now. Like with how much insanity there is in the mainstream media, I think that right now citizens activism is very important, and I feel like posting YouTube videos, and I don't want to like toot my own horn, but I think that's kind of important. Like it's a form of activism at this point. So I think that voices speaking out are incredibly important. So thank you for joining the cause, Iban. I think that's great, and
Thanks a lot.
you're doing great work. I saw you on. Were you on Tim Black's show recently? Is that where?
No, I work with Tim Black.
Oh, cool.
I help him out, and we started kind of a company. We're trying to build an independent network, and it's gonna be tricky because I'm not really a personal like what you and Tim and people like Debbie and HA and Jimmy Dore do. I can't do that. I'm more of a technical person, so I can work on creating platform software and things like that. And strategy is kind of my specialty. So things, not just creating it, but creating it so it's decentralized, peer-to-peer. All the processing power can be done just on other people who view, view the platform, view live streaming. All the live encoding can be done in parallel through people's devices, their computers, their laptops, their smartphones. So that's one aspect. Other things like having a Google News type of news aggregate. So have that for independent media and things like that. Kind of have like a auction for advertisers, so the content creators get the majority of money and not the third party. So if advertisers want to advertise on someone's channel, they could put in a money bid, and like say like this live stream. Say you've got 500 people, and that's a good enough money, a lot of views for a certain demographic. So then you can go ahead and if you're a small company, say, and you have a product you like to do, you don't have to spend like 50 grand to like you would advertise on, say, mainstream media, right? So you've got independent medium where you can give, say, put $200 down, and hopefully no one outbids you. So the next commercial spot, you can actually, people can show your commercial, and it can either be tiered away, so there's no, like the content creator won't have any say in the advertising that's done, so it's just that space. So that, you know, it's not like they can be bought off by advertising for Coke or Pepsi or whatever. But then you can also maybe have content creators have an option, so you can create like a blacklist. Maybe you just don't want certain types of companies that get promoted on your show, but then you won't get the money. So it's just a personal choice. So anyways, things like that coming up with, so I work full time. I just had our second kid. So
well,
just
congratulations.
Thanks. So just finding time to do all this is just the problem. And so
that sounds like a lot, but what you're describing sounds awesome, because it seems like you're trying to create a system kind of like YouTube, where you have this barrier between the advertisers and the actual content creators, which I think is super important, because, you know, it's not like if you're advertising for Coca-Cola and you have to go through Coca-Cola and Coca-Cola does something that's shady, you know, you're going to be probably disinclined to talk about Coca-Cola because you want to keep those bucks. But on YouTube, you know, I think the best example is I was talking shit about Tom Perez, and there was an ad about Tom Perez before my video while he was running for DNC chair, and they just listed it as, oh, Tom Perez. So, you know, this is clearly a video about him. Let's advertise. When really, I'm just ripping the guy to shreds. I actually feel bad because I talk so much shit about him. So that's awesome. So I think that what you're doing is amazing, because a lot of us, we just started by turning on a camera and talking, and we don't know what the hell we're doing. So for people like you that are actually tech savvy is super important. And Tim Black is someone who I trust 1,000%. So I'm glad you're working with him. Kick ass. Tim Black is criminally underappreciated. Him and a couple other people. There's the biggest one that comes to my head besides Tim Black is Benjamin Dixon, who is just, he's starting to blow up finally, but he does really great work too. There's so much people that are doing excellent things. So the fact that there's people like you really working to like bolster what they're doing is Awesome. So yeah, we're glad to have you, Ivan, because I think that that is really, really important right now. I mean, yeah, I don't know if you've been on any of these chats before. I don't know what I'm doing with the, oh, is okay, very cool. Yeah, I know Tim Black. He does live chats a lot more frequently, so he's got all the tech stuff down. And when I did, I was so disappointed because I had Tim Black on my show like a month or two ago. I completely fucked up our entire live chat. So it was like a 40-minute conversation, and I had headphones in, but I was hearing Tim Black through my computer. Yep. So anytime he talked, there was this echo, and I couldn't just figure out something super simple, just getting audio through my headphones as I plug it into the microphone. Yeah. So I had to, I sent the email. I'm like, dude, I completely messed up our chat. You are like, you can't even hear anything with what you're saying. So I can only salvage the end. So
if you check out my channel, I've been working on using different types of kind of like live chat like this with video collaboration. And there's one from Ring Central that we liked, Ring Central meeting. So it can have up to 50 participants, and it's pretty good. You can see everyone here. It doesn't kind of go back and forth, but if so, you can mix it in with OBS, so you can actually see. So what I do is I put the people's live chat on YouTube, so that when people view back that live stream, they could actually see all the chat that occurs. So if you wanted to, you could also, when people are typing in something and you stop and you kind of correspond with someone who's chatting, you can answer a question, and then you can actually see what the person was, how that conversation came to be by looking at the live chat in that video on the side.
That's really cool, because that's one thing that I kind of try to do. I've been trying to record my screen and put the chats in with the videos, but it ends up, most people see it without that by the time I finish editing it and getting it up on the channel. But yeah, I try to just read off the comments now, so so people kind of have some context, because that's so important. Yeah. But yeah, thank you for what you're doing, and the fact that you're working with Team Black is awesome. Because
I wouldn't be here with if you guys weren't doing this. So I mean, thank all you guys for doing this. Plus, it's hard because I know you were going to grad school and doing this part time.
Yeah, I stopped taking classes this last year, but yeah, it's gotta be tough. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Oh, it was unbearable last year, especially during the primary. There'd be a story that broke, and I'd be in class, and my phone would blow up, and I'd see Twitter. Why aren't you talking about this? Get on camera right now! I'm like, I'm in class. I can't. But I mean, it's a lot. So I feel like this incremental progress that we're making and making all of our channels better is super important. And we're all one thing that I like is that we've all been kind of working together, all all independent, anti-mainstream people, just to kind of get it all, the ball rolling and trying to promote each other, which I think is super, super important, because there are so many, especially since the demonetization thing, there are so many people that started channels that are brand new that actually are really, really great. Like there's this guy named Miguel Curros. I'm probably mispronouncing his name. He has a channel called Independence. He just launched it. And like those small channels, it's going to be difficult now. So I think that the bigger channels have got to do their part in terms of like helping to promote the smaller channels. Because it's so tough right now because like, even if it's not just YouTube, hiding away certain results, they try to give a platform to the big news. So, I mean, the week when Trump launched his strikes on Syria, all the videos that anyone posted got demonetized on Syria, but they had this big, exclusive, find out about Syria from CBS, Associated Press. I'm like, hey, fuck you. That's little 2-minute shitty clips from CBS where they just tell you what happened. I mean, we're digging through everything, giving you the analysis, and you're demonetizing us. I mean, it's like we knew that it would get demonetized, but it's still kind of like a slap in the face. Like, well, fuck us for trying to talk about the issues, right?
Well, what was funny was I was trying to connect on here through my normal email account, and my Google Plus account was suspended because I did a recent video on Seth Rich, and it wasn't even anything out there. It was basically what the mainstream media did on Seth Rich. So it was just that. So I had to go to one of my side accounts to log in and access Google Hangouts. So to be on this thing.
They banned you because you had a video about Seth Rich?
Yeah. So it's not banned, it's suspended. Yeah, my Google Plus account.
Wow.
And it was recent because I was able to use Google Plus before, and then I did the Seth Rich thing, I think last week, and then so I don't go on Google Plus that much, but I just tried doing the Google Hangouts with my main email account, and said my account with Google Plus account was suspended, so I had to use a different email account.
That's really shady. And that brings me to think of one thing that Facebook does is and this is something I just found about, is if you post something that can be considered as inflammatory, they'll remove the share button. So, for example, my niece, she went to California and she saw Donald Trump's star on a Hollywood sign. So she took a picture flipping it off. And so I wanted to share that. And I was trying to figure out a way to share it because I was going to say, so proud of my niece, how funny. And I realized that I couldn't share that because she was giving the middle finger. So one thing that I found out today is I'm going through the comments on the video I posted about net neutrality, and there's so many people saying I'm not allowed to share this video on Netflix. So it's interesting because is it just inflammatory things, or is this a form of censorship? And that's Facebook. But you saying that about Google Hangouts is really interesting, because the fact that they would suspend you for talking about Seth Rich is really curious to me. So I'd like to know if this is kind of a bigger thing. I'm sure that, if you're suspended for it, then you're not going to be the last one, and we'll certainly find out more. Yeah, but it's very, very interesting.
So it was a couple of weeks back, maybe even a month. Jordan Sheridan of TYT Politics did kind of a smear against Tim Black, HA, and Nico House. And so a couple of independent media came and defended H.A. Goodman and Tim Black and Nico. And it was like Hard Bastard, Jamal Thomas, Holly Seeliger, and like Michael Salomon and a couple others. And so Hard Bastard did this one long video about it. Oh, hello.
Hi, welcome to the chat.
Hi. And his video got banned from YouTube, so he got a strike against him for like bullying or something like that. And so
Hard Bastard got banned. He got banned.
Or no, he didn't get banned. He got like a strike. So that means he couldn't live stream for I think it's a month or whatever.
Right.
So I took his video, just chopped it up into 5 segments, and uploaded it on my YouTube channel. But nothing happened to me. So because we wanted to find out if I got a strike on one of the 5 segments, we know which part we could look into, see what might have been bullying or harassment. But I never got it, so we're thinking someone just had a personal vendetta against them and flagged them.
Yeah, that's probably what happened. I've had a couple of, back in the primaries, I had people who, in my video never got flagged because I think it has to be like a certain amount of people, but Hillary Clinton supporters that tried to brigade my one of my videos but failed to do so. But yeah, I think if enough people do it, then they could basically take down your video as like hate speech or something, because it's happened before on Reddit with other videos that were not with, who was it? It was a guy that was a pretty big YouTuber that used to make fun of people, and he made fun of someone with autism. I think his name is, oh shit, what is his name? Leafy. He has like the full name. He posted a video where he took this guy with autism's videos, and I believe that Reddit, it was his videos that Reddit was able to get like flagged as hate speech or something. So I know that they do have like a community thing, and YouTube has this heroes program thing as well, which is scary because anything that someone disagrees with a lot can basically, or if enough people can, they can get it flagged. And that's kind of, that can be pretty scary because people like Correct the Record, who work for Correct the Record, can technically go through, and they were doing it during the primaries with my channel. They would brigade me with like 50 dislikes when I'd post a video. So it's really weird, and I don't like that feature at all. It's very scary.
Yeah.
Let me go through and say hi to everyone that welcomed. Thank you for joining the chat. What's your name?
Me?
Yeah.
Or somebody else? Sorry. Hi, I'm Ashley.
Ashley, welcome to the chat. Thank you for coming in here. I'm always thankful to people that join, because if it's just me, then I I talk in circles, so it's very important to have other voices.
I need an outlet sometimes other than my husband. He gets a little exhausted with my political speech. So
That is honestly, I hear that story so much, and it's so funny to me because I'll always hear like, I was talking to this couple about Medicare for All, Amy and David. I featured them on my videos a couple of times, and I'm doing a piece on their daughter. And she was talking about how I'm trying to convince him to start a podcast. He's driving me fucking nuts about this. All he does is talk about politics and whatnot. And basically, that was the same story with me and my fiance and whatnot. It's the same thing where you have to have an outlet. And this podcast is therapy. If I like any time where I postpone the podcast even for a day, I go crazy because by like the end of the week, I have shit. It's like going over in my mind and I think about it in circles, and it literally like keeps me up at night to where it's like, okay, I have to have an outlet. So this is what we do on this. We basically just complain. And we have someone else who joined the chat. Welcome, welcome to the chat. What's your name?
Hello, Michael. My name is Cameron.
Hey, Cameron. How's it going?
Fine. I just got home from school.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Are you in college or high school?
Both.
Both. Oh, hell yeah. So you're
Nice.
doing probably, it's like a, well, they call it over here a Head Start program where
Yep,
you
Head Start.
are in high school and you earn college credits at the same time.
No, I actually go to a community college, 7:30 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night.
Holy crap. Well, I wish I took a cue from you when I was your age, because
Better than wasting
that,
money
like,
at a four-year university.
that's exactly it. I ended up getting my, I actually didn't finish high school, so I dropped out and I went to a community college at first. And the education was fantastic. Like I learned so much, and I realized that was an option. Head Start was an option to where you can be in high school and college at the same time. And I always thought like, these kids are like seriously so ambitious. Like, what am I doing with my life? Like, it's so so kudos to you. I think that is fantastic because like, obviously I value people who are able to do that, because like I didn't finish high school. I got in trouble and I was homeschooled. So I was pulled out by my parents and I didn't finish homeschool. I, fought with my parents, but so it took me a very, very long time to finish everything. So kudos to you, because you're doing great, and clearly you care about politics and whatnot. So to do all of that, you really should stop and be proud of yourself and think, because damn, that's amazing. I try to get my nieces and nephews who are your age involved in politics, and I'm kind of successful sometimes.
I've been into it since I was 9. I blame my
Really?
grandfather for it.
That's amazing. That's so amazing. And I actually have people in like different countries. Like I don't know which country. It might have been from the Philippines. The kid was 14 years old and sent me an email message saying how he watches the show, every single day and whatnot. And I'm just like,
Yeah, give me a second.
flabbergasted. Say that again, Iban. Oh, you're muted still.
Oh, I have to check on my kids. I'll be right back.
Okay, yeah, no
Iban.
problem. Yeah, you probably know Iban too. Iban has been doing a lot of work with Tim Black lately, and he was kind of filling us in what he's doing with Tim Black and trying to like help with live shows and whatnot. So yeah, this is always fun. We only have 9 people on the chat, but what we typically see is more people will watch it afterwards. So, and hey, it looks like Sebastian, you're home from, I know you said you were on the bus.
No, I was in a taxi actually in New York City. That's why I look like a bobblehead half the time.
Well, hey, how's your day going? Because I didn't get to talk to you. I didn't want to ask you about your day and whatnot while you were you couldn't really talk. How are you doing today?
So far so good. It's actually, I've been traveling back from Colorado after running a 10K on Memorial Day. So
Holy crap,
yeah,
that's amazing. Good for
long
you.
day, but it was good.
Good for you. That's awesome.
I would be dead.
I would be dead at 5K and stuff. And my mother-in-law, she just ran a 5K a couple of weeks ago, and we were going to meet. Me and my fiance were going to meet with her for dinner, and she told me, oh, I just ran. She was just casually brought up, yeah. So this morning, me and my friend ran a 5K, and then we did. I'm like, wait, stop. You ran a 5K this morning? How are you not like dead to the world right now? Like when I go for a walk around the block with my dog, both of us are dying. I mean, like, he's a pug, so he doesn't like exercise very much. But I mean, like, that shit is really intense. And, you know, I can't like do much unless I'm, I really like work myself up and prepare myself mentally for it. So people that do that I have the utmost respect for. Okay, so here's what we can do now. So does anybody want to talk about any issues in particular? Because I don't want this to be only about me. I want to know what you guys think about the issues as well, because you guys know where I stand on basically everything. So is there anything that anybody has just like kind of grinding their gears lately, or anything that I haven't talked about on the show? Anything that you saw recently, an article that was interesting to you that you want to bring up?
I mean, I have a general feeling I've been accumulating over maybe the last month, but I don't know if that's really...
Hey, shoot. This is where we air it all out right here.
I guess over the last month, it's really been over the last 4 or 5 months at least, it's been a sort of a gruel through my Facebook feed, where I'm simultaneously feeling like, my Facebook feed is full of people who are apologizing for establishment politics and sort of continuing on the trend as in, yes, status quo was okay, despite the fact that they would be irreparably harmed by it. And then even if I say one thing, even in a sort of matter-of-fact way instead of more of an accusatory way, it comes into such conflict that I feel like I'm having a large amount of my opinions stifled, at least within my own social circle. So it's been kind of a rough thing, like realizing that your family and immediate friends would totally jump down your throat for even saying something that objectively is true. So it's been interesting and rough trying to sort of nuance my way through supporting progressive ideals and still not developing 30 plus enemies in the span of 5 minutes. I know how you do it, Mike.
I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah, did you want to say something about this, Ashley? Because I saw that you kind of had a reaction. It was like, because I know you said you want to vent.
No idea. I have no idea. I have kind of like him. I've had, honestly, my feelings have been building up since the primaries, but, you know, it is what it is. Basically, you know, I was one of the, well, it felt like there were more people in my friend group supporting Bernie, but it felt like I was one of the few, just because my closer friends, believe it or not, were all very staunch Hillary supporters. And beyond the election, because the election's over, the thing is, people kind of go like, oh, why do you keep talking about it? Why do you keep talking about the election? Because the thing is, unfortunately, I wish it wasn't, but unfortunately, it's still relevant. Like, I want to be done with it. I don't want to keep talking about it or thinking about it, but it doesn't go away. Like, I think it's frustrating for me because, you know, if I say anything that's even remotely critical of the left, by the way, I'm a progressive. I've always voted blue. I've always been left. I've never, ever been conservative. But if you say anything that's even remotely critical of the left or the establishment left, I mean, my big thing is people go straight to identity politics, and this is something that's been incredibly frustrating for me. Like, even within my own family, like the thing that people do is they don't, and I found this to be so true everywhere. They don't go, okay, here's what I don't agree with on your argument. Here are the parts of here's the part of our arguments I do agree with. It's, well, you don't understand because you're not whatever, like this. And it's like, and it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what it is. It's automatically, you can't have a valid point because of identity politics. You just can't. And I'm just like, I've even had, you know, like, women tell me like, and by the way, on Twitter, I actually have a thing. I actually have no identifying information on Twitter. My photo, my description, nothing, because I purposely, I intentionally do that because I don't want people attacking some kind of perceived identity they think I have. So when people get mad at me and they can't find anything else to attack me on, they'll go to my profile. They literally look at it. I've seen them post. They'll call it fake. They call my profile fake. They call it made up because I don't have a picture. I don't have a description of who I am or what I necessarily believe in, because that's what people want to do. And I'm so frustrated with it. Like, why can't you just listen to me for what I have to say? Not for, I don't know what I look like or anything like that. Why can't we have valid points and being just who we are? And it's just really frustrating. Sorry, that was a really long rant.
No, that you are speaking music to our ears right now. I think that you are perfectly doing a good job at basically voicing how we all feel. It is basically, there's people that will hijack the conversation and they'll diminish what you have to say because of identity politics specifically. And it's a really intellectually lazy way of just saying, I don't want to debate you. You know, if you don't want to debate someone, then you can say you don't want to debate them. But to just say, oh, well, you can't speak about issues X, Y, and Z because of who you are, I think that that's something that is really frustrating to me. And I've noticed, I've kind of seen this as someone, you know, from the LGBT community. I noticed this argument being used against straight people. And this was particularly prevalent during the primaries when I was doing a bunch of videos about Bernie Sanders and how he was a better LGBT ally than Hillary Clinton. And, you know, I would notice people would come out and they would attack Bernie in favor of Hillary Clinton, saying, well, you don't know who's better for us because you're not LGBT. You know, you're a straight person. And my whole response was, well, that makes no sense to me because LGBT people, we are in the minority, so we couldn't have possibly gotten rights if it weren't for straight allies that came to our defense. So I want to hear what everyone has to say. I think that, you know, it's kind of the same thing with abortion. What I noticed is that if you are a male, then your position on abortion is probably taken into consideration a lot less. And I noticed this, honestly, not to defend a conservative. When I was in college in one of my classes, there was a conservative male who was anti-abortion, and I disagreed with him, obviously, but the argument was that, well, you're a man, so you won't, you know, and I get the point that if you're a male, you obviously don't know what it's like to have an abortion and whatnot, but I still think that you should take into consideration the merits of their argument, and you shouldn't try to disregard them, because I think that if you are anti-abortion, we can argue against that person based on the merits of our argument, you know, irrespective of their identity. So I've kind of always been one that just said, you just take people for their argument, and even though, you know, you may disagree with them, and even if we're all kind of in our own subjective bubble, I still think it's important that we listen to what other people have to say. So I think that what you were saying, Ashley, you're speaking for all of us right now, because this is something that we've seen constantly. And even with, you know, using political identities against people, because I saw like a couple tweets last night from someone, you're on the left, how dare you criticize President Obama? You know, you can't criticize him if you're from the left. Why not? I criticize every single person. And Cameron has something to say about that. Do you want to chime in?
I've literally been told, why are you criticizing Obama when you're a black man?
What?
And I'm like, maybe it's because he decided to bomb the Middle East, and I don't want him to do that. Maybe that's why I criticize him. Yeah. A lot of people were getting on me for criticizing a black man because I'm a black man and pretending like Obama was an angel, essentially. I feel like, no, he did a few good things, he did a few bad things. That's just the way I see it.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right there, because it's like, you can't put people up on a pedestal and you can't say, well, you know, I want equal rights for women and I want equal rights for people of color. However, if they do something wrong, I'm not going to hold them equally accountable. I mean, the operative term here is we all want equality. So, you know, what Obama did in becoming the first black president, I don't think anyone is ever going to, you know, say, oh, you know, that wasn't something that was important, because of course it was important, but you have to be objective and look at what he did. And what he did, I mean, in terms of dropping bombs in Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia, that's unforgivable to me. You know, and I hold him accountable in the same way that I hold George Bush accountable. I think they committed war crimes. I think that we have to hold them accountable. So yeah, we've all seen this in one way or another, where our arguments have just been completely disregarded because of who we are. It doesn't matter who you are. You know what I mean? No matter where you come from, what your identity is, what group you belong to, there's always someone that wants to disregard your argument because of who you are. But the thing about that is, it's a tacit endorsement of your argument, because if they can't debate you on the merits, then they lose, right? I mean, if they just unilaterally say, or not unilaterally, that's the wrong word. If they just straight up, you know, reject you because, oh, well, like with you, Cameron, oh, you can't criticize Obama because you're a black man, so you have to look up. Well, Obviously, that makes no sense in a sane world. So I think that what you guys are all saying here is something that we've all had to deal with. And I think that this is important that we all air this out, because I know all of us want to vent about this. Ashley, your venting is like music, you know, to our ears right now. Does anyone else want to fill in here? Because I think that we all have something in some way to say about this.
I think there's one other thing that we didn't.
To say I credit.
Go ahead.
No, you. I insist.
Okay. There's something else that I've also found happens a lot, where it's more of an infantilization, a sort of you don't know what you're talking about, Bernie's perfect kind of rhetoric that's spat back, where it's like, no, you haven't actually looked into these issues. You're just spouting talking points because you believe that your candidate is perfect. And no candidate is perfect. I mean, when Bernie signed that one document with every single other senator to tell the UN to stop being so harsh on Israel, are you kidding me? If anything, the UN should be more harsh on Israel and its effectively invasion of the West Bank with settlements. Like, so yeah, there are even problems with Bernie. There are problems with every politician. But simply using that smokescreen of you don't know what you're talking about, you haven't researched this enough, seems to quell a lot of the points instead of actually trying to face you on an issue and opinion basis. Like, that just feels like a cheap shot.
You wanna chime in, Cameron?
I agree with you, Sebastian, because I had this kid at my school. His name is Carlos, and he's one of the only conservatives at my school. And he basically figured, since I'm a Bernie supporter, I wouldn't criticize him over signing that document that was not critical of Israel. And he was surprised that I viciously went after Bernie Sanders on that one issue.
Yeah.
And I've just noticed this with my generation, where we're more critical of basically every politician and more distrusting of the government than any other generation that I've seen.
I think that is a really, really good point that you're making, Cameron. And also, one thing that I've noticed is actually being someone who, I mean, I talked to, basically I'm in a Bernie bubble, right? You know, maybe I've created like an echo chamber when I just, you know, see my Twitter feed and people who I follow that like Bernie Sanders, but I talk to a lot of Bernie people. We're more critical of Bernie Sanders than Hillary Clinton is, or than Hillary Clinton supporters are of her. And there are some progressives that are very critical. I mean, if you watch Sane Progressive, she is very, very progressive, and she's critical of Bernie Sanders. I mean, we are not going to allow people to get away with it just because we like them. I mean, we don't put anyone on a pedestal. You know what I mean? And I think that's so important. Like, you can't put anyone on a pedestal. I've seen everyone call out Bernie Sanders over the letter that he signed. He signed Marco Rubio's letter, you know, and it was just unacceptable. So Bernie Sanders, he knows that we're not going to just take everything he says as gospel. We're going to be objective, and we're going to hold him accountable when he needs to be held accountable. Ebon, did you have something to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, of all the faults of Bernie, he's working with the Democratic National Committee and things like that. The one thing is, he's actually someone that will listen when you give him criticism of what he's doing. At least that's my hope that he will. But from his primary and how he goes about and talks to people, I feel like that's kind of his thing. So when people criticize Hillary Clinton, I don't think she's gonna really care. But when people criticize Bernie Sanders, especially his supporters, I think he listens. That's the one thing I'll say about Bernie Sanders, despite all the things he's been doing for the last couple of months.
That is exactly right. Because I don't know if you guys, so back in 2014, before I started the podcast, I was really, really mad at Bernie Sanders because I loved him. But in 2014, he had a town hall and somebody was asking him to condemn the war crimes that Israel committed against Gaza. I mean, they were killing so many civilians. And Bernie said, Israel has a right to defend himself. And basically, Bernie made a fool of himself. I was extremely upset with Bernie Sanders. But I decided to kind of put that aside, you know, when he decided to announce his presidency. And as he announced his presidency, I noticed his position got, you know, further and further to the left, and we dragged him to the left. So you're 100% right, Yvonne. He does take our criticisms into account. And the thing about criticism is we think of it as something that's really bad, but it's criticism. It's neither bad nor good. It's just something that is, and it's really important. Like, I've gotten criticized by my viewers, and it's helped me understand issues better. So, for example, I posted a video about Brexit, I think the day or two after it happened, and my viewers called me out immediately. Like, it got so many dislikes because they said that my view was too heavily inspired by mainstream media. I visualized this as something that was more influenced by xenophobia than, you know, anti-establishment against trade policies. And they linked me to a bunch of articles, and I realized, wow, holy shit, I was actually, it seems like I was duped. Like, I think xenophobia played a part in it, but to say that Brexit was exclusively about xenophobia would be applying the same type of logic to the TPP. So I think that without that criticism, I wouldn't have gotten, you know, that perspective from people in the UK and whatnot. So criticism is important. It doesn't matter if you admire someone. To not criticize them, I think you're actually going to hurt them more, because like Ebon said, like, Bernie Sanders listens, and we moved him along. We moved him to the left on this issue. Now, every once in a while, he'll slip up, but we call him out. And I think that that is so important, because by being on his ass 24/7, like stank on shit, we're making sure he's still a good candidate in 2020 if he decides to run. So does anyone else want to add anything to that?
I'd also say that he also understands that it's okay to say, I made a mistake. I need to change my feelings on this, because obviously people are saying, trying to understand that. He's at least moving on towards that point, and that's a really important quality to have, being able to change. There's also one other thing I wanted to add in, where I think that part of what may have doomed Hillary Clinton's campaign, and this is something that I feel doesn't get nearly enough attention, is that with Obama's sort of false populism in 2008 and then 2012, we were so excited for a possible progressive change that never happened. And when you go through that whole sort of emotional upheaval, and then you get to the next round and they say, oh yeah, no, she's totally progressive on all these things, we go, wait a minute, we've gone through this before. Very similar to now how we're looking at sort of this possible war on North Korea, and seeing Iraq war flashbacks and wars on Russia, and you're just going, wait, we've gone through this. We have to rethink this. Fool us once, shame on you. Fool us twice, shame on me.
That is exactly it.
In this case.
And I like that you referred to Obama as, you know, false populism, because that's exactly it. He was a faux populist. He kind of duped us over. Like, I was so excited when, you know, Obama was elected. He basically was one of the people that got me into politics. But yeah, I feel like we were duped over. And I want to say hi to the individual that just joined. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Kyle.
Oh, you're Kyle. Okay, so you made it. I was really, because I saw your tweet to me about the link, and I actually realized that some of you weren't receiving the emails, because I have a big, and this is an archaic system. I have a document file, Word doc file, and I just copy and paste all your emails into a message, and then I blast that out. But it cuts me off after 500. So anyone who I started including after the 500, either at the top or the bottom of the list, has not been getting emails. So what I'm going to do is make sure that that doesn't happen. So I'll basically split the list in half and be more wary of how many people are on there. But not to talk your off, how's your day been going? And how are you feeling right now about politics this week? Is there anything that's on your heart?
Well, I've been kind of paying attention to the, and I think Donald Trump him and Kim Jong-un just scared the crap out of me. Just them working. And I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton either. And I don't know. I just feel that didn't vote for Hillary. I think she would be better in terms of, not in terms of the Middle East, but just North Korea.
Yeah, sure. I think that makes sense, because when you look at not just Donald Trump, but Republicans in general, they have been salivating over two countries for a very long time, Iran and North Korea. And, you know, George Bush declared, you know, Iran and North Korea as part of the axis of evil. And before Michael Flynn was fired, Iran was kind of on the chopping block. But now that might not happen, and Trump doesn't have someone like Michael Flynn pushing him, now North Korea is, you know, it's looking a little bit better. Maybe we want to invade North Korea. They have no fucking idea what they're getting themselves into with North Korea. And it's weird to me. This kind of goes into the Syria thing too, because if you look at the North Korea situation and you're one of the people to say, leave it alone, then you're kind of demonized, right? You're this bad person because people will say, well, how can you look at that? There are people in concentration camps. How can you turn a blind eye to that? But it's a matter of, well, you have to understand what comes with war. You're not going to have a war without more people dying. That's just the way that wars operate. So I think that North Korea, the way that you get to North Korea is through China, because China's propping up North Korea. And the only reason why China is really propping up North Korea is because China doesn't want to deal with the gigantic refugee crisis. So it is a scary situation to constantly see Trump saber rattle against North Korea, because when you have someone who's a man baby in Donald Trump, someone who is a man baby in Kim Jong-un, it's pretty disturbing to think about the consequences here. So I'm glad that you said that, Kyle, because it's something that is one of the many things that keep me up at night if I think about it long enough, with war and whatnot. Does anyone else want to chime in and say anything about that?
I'm a Korean, so I shouldn't be talking about
it. You're biased, Ivan.
I agree with you two.
Yeah.
Especially since some of the things I've seen from my own family. My grandfather and his wife, who I call my Nana, moved out to Arizona, and when we went out there, the whole crisis that was about to happen with North Korea was happening, and I was freaking out. So me and my grandfather got into a debate over whether we should do it or not, and he kept justifying that we need to go in there simply to... And I'm like, how about no? How about no? How about no more war and death? Just leave it alone. Just mind ours. Because I don't want to die.
Right.
I'm terrified of the prospect of nuclear war.
And Cameron...
Nightmares about war sometimes.
Yep, because you care about the issues. And Cameron, it's funny how we're talking about this, because it's easy for us to say that because we live in the United States, but someone who is living in Seoul right now is probably watching this and is going crazy thinking, because I mean, it wouldn't, North Korea, they're not going to attack the United States. They're going to attack Seoul, because that, if there's anything that's going to happen. So it's not, the blood isn't on our hands. We don't have to worry. Or I mean, we wouldn't have anyone that we would lose. It'd be people in Seoul, which is, it's so scary. Like my niece was born in Seoul, and to think, it kind of puts it into perspective. It's like, what if she was still living there? You know what I mean? When all this is happening. So we kind of do things and we don't think about the actions of our consequences when there are other people that would be affected. I mean, Donald Trump, in sitting here saber rattling against North Korea and Kim Jong-un, we can sit back and say, yeah, this is something we shouldn't do. But it's like the people in Seoul, they have no control over our government. And at least we can protest and go to the Capitol. People in Seoul they're just innocent bystanders. So it's got to be like, I don't know what it would be like for someone in Seoul to see our idiot president constantly do things that put them in jeopardy. And it's not just Trump. It's been like, this is the way it's been for a really long time with, North Korea and them threatening Seoul. And there has been a couple of armed conflicts off of islands, that are kind of, there's territorial disputes right now between the North and South. So it's very scary, to think about that potentially devolving into an explosive situation that could harm people in both countries. You know what I mean? Because the people in North Korea are innocent as well, obviously, so it's just lose-lose. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing about wars. It's lose-lose. And no matter how they want to spin it, if you're, humanitarian, whatnot, you have to intervene for humanitarian reasons, because we do wars for good reasons, not for oil, but, for good reasons to help people.
As Jimmy Dore said, we got Christian bombs that hunt terrorists to death.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Who is that? It's Jimmy Dore that says that.
Yeah,
Jimmy Dore says that.
I love it. Just hypes it up a lot, saying that, they have a nuclear missile that might be able to reach the west coast of the United States. And when you think about war, usually the goal is kill as many as possible. Mm-hmm. And where in the West do a lot of people live? Think about it. Los Angeles. Where do I live? Los Angeles. Shit. So that's why I was freaking out.
Right.
Especially when you think of the radius of a nuclear missile and I'm all the way in Arizona, it could still reach me. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why I had a nightmare about it.
And you're right to have a nightmare. And people your age usually aren't thinking about this. So just the fact that you're like, thinking about this and mulling it over is it's kind of like a blessing and a curse, right? Because I don't know if you heard about the term ignorant bliss and ignorance is bliss and whatnot. Like once you start learning about, you know, the damage that militaries can do, it really keeps you up at night. I mean, on one hand, it's good that you're informed, but on another hand, it's really scary. You know what I mean?
I stopped being ignorant, and I ended up having an existential crisis.
I feel you. I absolutely feel you there. 'Cause
one aspect too that needs to be one other aspect that needs to be touched upon is that really, as I guess anyone born since 1985 realistically has no conception of the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and no sort of Cold War even. So a lot of these sort of red baiting scare tactics don't really work on us, but we also don't have any sort of memory of with effectively what going to war actually means, because realistically the first war for most of us was probably the first Gulf War, and then even if you remember that, you might not remember that at all, and so therefore your first war is the Iraq War. So you don't really have a context for going to war, getting people coming back from war with injury. It's really kind of a recent memory. You don't have that sort of historical, like, failed wars background. So simultaneously you get the benefit of not having red baiting work on you, the detriment of not having any experience of going, wait, war's a bad thing. So we still have all these crazy infomercials. I even saw a couple on the flight here about like Army, Marines, proud, strong individuals doing righteous things because apparently all of our weapons don't hurt people that aren't good people. Like, that's one of Jimmy Dore's best points, is that our good Christian bombs apparently don't kill bad people. And like, that doesn't work. It doesn't ever work that way.
Yeah, Sebastian, you make a very important point. There's a lot of people who I talk to, they're not terrified of the idea of war, and I think it's because my generation has never seen a war with our own eyes, especially since we have the mainstream media now not broadcasting, oh, hey, this is what's happening in Afghanistan, this is how many Americans died, et cetera, et cetera. So it's what terrifies me, because I've never seen anyone who's so vehemently anti-war as I am. And I think it comes from being in a very high history class. We learn about all these wars and about all the people that died, and I'm like, how could we prevent this from happening again? The answer is being anti-war. But then there's barely anyone who I talk to who's anti-war. I'm lucky if I can find someone who's like that, because the only war that my generation grew up with was the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, and we've never seen them. And it's interesting for me to be anti-war because people wouldn't expect the son of a veteran to be anti-war for some reason. And I'm just so confused on why they would expect that, especially since my father was in the Navy. I don't want people to go to war like he did. I don't want there to be a reason to go to war in the first place.
Right. You're making a good point, actually, Cameron, because for me, I'm also obviously very anti-war, but I had two brothers that were, one's in the Army, one's in the Navy. And I think that there's this idea that, you know, if you're in the military or if you are, you know, part of a military family, you're more conservative and, you know, you're inclined to support whatever the government does. And because if not, then you're not supporting the troops. But I mean, really supporting the troops means you don't want to send them, you know, abroad to get killed in other countries when we don't even have a good reason to be going there. I mean, it's not like they are, they're defending like this threat that's coming. You know, it's not like we're going to be invaded by someone, you know what I mean? So I think that it's really weird because people who have families with veterans, you think they would be more anti-war. And I kind of feel like just with people I know anyways, that is the case.
Sorry guys, I gotta check out, but it was nice talking to y'all. So
very nice talking to you. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Have a good day.
You too.
I'm definitely shocked when I see like Tulsi Gabbard get criticized for being both a veteran and anti-war, because it seems like that should be the natural consequence of serving. Would be, holy shit, we did some crazy stuff. We need to come back and make sure that we don't ever have to do that again, because I'm still suffering PTSD from going. Like, you would think that would be the natural progression of, like, yeah, we shouldn't be doing this. But when she speaks out against it, it's just everyone in the media gets so horrified of, like, how dare you speak ill of anything military-wise. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
Brian, what's his name?
Brian Williams.
Brian Williams is just getting a hard-on over every single little bit of military matters.
Our missiles.
Beautiful, yeah.
Yeah.
Believe me.
The thing that I don't like is mainstream media doesn't really cover war or our armed forces that are in other countries. The only times that they do cover it is if we're in an allied country and something bad happens, like they rape a couple people, either it's in Japan or Korea or wherever they're stationed. But when they actually do stuff in war countries, it's not really covered. We don't know if they're doing good things or bad things. And what we used to do is have journalists, like during Civil War and World War I, World War II, they actually go and cover all the things that were going on during the war. But right now, it doesn't seem like they're really covering anything negative. It's just pretty much positive coverage that, all right, we struck something and it was good. It's hard not. I mean, I think, how do we get people into these countries to document all the things that are actually going on? We really can't. And any independent medium, even like Luke We Are Change, he's trying to go to a lot of these places, but in war zones, I don't think that's possible. Abby Martin went to Israel to cover some stuff. I don't think she's allowed back. There's so many rules and so much danger just being opposed to what's actually going on in that narrative for war, that you can't really cover it because you'll probably get killed. I mean, there's a lot of journalists in a lot of these countries that get killed, even if they're on the side of the government or something like that.
Yeah, it's really
the government
scary.
will murder them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys, if you are only someone that like watches mainstream media, for all you know, we're not in Iraq and Afghanistan because Obama announced that the wars were over. And the real news was that, he reduced the number of troops down. But he basically said the war is over. But it's like, no, it's not. If you have troops there, that's war. That we're invading another country. So it's interesting to me because if you only think about the people, there's so many people that still do this. If your only media diet is mainstream media, then I don't know how you are getting your information, like Yvonne said. And there are journalists that, the ones that actually do like really bombshell, hard-hitting reports, they get no mention. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever watch Frontline for PBS. Like, they actually had journalists infiltrate ISIS strongholds where they pretended to be like citizens there. They got in and they like took cameras. I mean, risking their lives. How are their reports not plastered everywhere on the mainstream media? It doesn't make any sense to me. And of course, it's just because, they're manufacturing consent for everything. And, if it comes down to ISIS, I mean, we created ISIS. Our government created ISIS. If it weren't for our actions, then we couldn't have created that vacuum for ISIS to exist. So we don't want to talk about how bad it is because that makes us look bad, unless, it's drumming up support for another war. Then we'll talk about how bad ISIS is. It's just, it feels like a catch-22. And with just how out of whack our media is, it feels like sometimes like the situation is hopeless, but really it's not, because there are people that are waking up. I mean, the fact that Bernie Sanders' movement still has life after the election, I think is super important. Let me just take a minute though to say, send some shout outs here to people in the chat room, because I don't want them to feel like they're being.
How can you expect our international independent media to work if their narratives that contradict the mainstream media's narratives are disregarded and dissented, and we can't even cover our own local news properly? Like, how many institutions actually sent someone to go report on DAPL? one, as far as I know. And then there were a couple of local reporters, and that was it. Like, if you can't even bother to send someone to go actually get on the ground and find reporting in the U.S. in a slightly militarized but not nearly as militarized zone as internationally, what good are you going to get with or on the ground producing dissenting opinions, or at least opinions that differ from the mainstream narrative? Like, they're not going to get any time, they're not going to get any money, and zero support.
Yeah, it's because those, you know, Dapple, I mean, that's going to attract, you know, some clicks and some eyeballs, but not as much as like the Trump-Russia story will. You know, I mean, with Rachel Maddow, her ratings are through the roof since she started covering Russia. And I thought that would actually have the opposite effect. Like, I thought that if she just talked about it nonstop, then that would hurt her views. But I mean, she's getting so much. I mean, any mainstream media show that talks about Russia instead of like other issues, they are getting rewarded very heavily right now. So it's just, when you see the real issues like net neutrality and Dakota Access Pipeline, which has like now 3 leaks, it's so frustrating to me, because those are the issues that like they're supposed to inform us. But here they are talking about Russia. Oh, well, there's this connection and this connection and that connection, and maybe this is happening. Meanwhile, you know, that's not going to actually help people's lives. I mean, getting to the bottom of this Russia story, you know, it's not going to feed us. It's not going to relieve us of the student loan debt that we're in. So real quick, let me just give a shout out, though, before we go further, to people in the chat room. I want to shout out Katie and Shaw, Linda Brink, and also shout out to Showtime, who gave you all a shout out for doing a great job with the commentary. There's someone else, that Charles Marty Morgan. Shout out to you as well. Thank you all for being in the show here. We are certainly listening and reading your comments here. So thank you all. Okay, so does anybody want to bring up anything else that they'd like to talk about, or anything in the news lately? I did have an issue that I wanted to talk about, but I completely forgot about it before the chat. But so, I mean, it's completely open. If you guys have anything that's on your heart, anything you want to share, if you want to just straight up vent, I can be 100% sure you're going to speak for all of us probably. So feel free if you guys want to talk about anything. Anyone in the chat want to chime in too?
What about
I feel
your
that the thing that annoys me most is that there's this kid at my school, mentioned for Carlos, justify the hoarding of money by the upper 1% as, oh, the government is stealing your money by taxing you.
Do you can you repeat that, Cameron? You were kind of breaking up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. So basically, the kid who I mentioned, Carlos, conservative, what we're going to call Carlos the conservative, basically the government is stealing the tax.
Okay, so I got some of that because there was a little bit of it turned into like robot. So about the thoughts of the government taxation being a form of theft, is that kind of what you were referring to?
Exactly.
Okay, so that to me is kind of a more, it's like a more libertarian argument from what I understand. But the thing about it is, those like people who are actually like real libertarians, they tend to be more classic liberals in terms of like the old school philosophies, like John Locke, you know, about how, you know, the government is supposed to leave me alone and whatnot. But these people who are saying that taxation is theft, in my opinion, they're taking one portion of classic liberalism and political philosophy and disregarding the other part of it. Because all these people who talk about small government and limited government, they don't realize that the founding fathers, in terms of political philosophy, they talk about this thing known as the social contract, where, you know, by entering into this social contract, you pay your taxes in exchange for certain services, and the government leaves you alone with the exception of those services. So to me, it seems like people who have this idea, I mean, I fully respect people who have that point of view, because it is, you know, libertarians are very consistent. So I would never shit on libertarians, because I think that we have so much common ground. But I think that that point of view is it's kind of looking at one issue of political philosophy and kind of disregarding the rest. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on this. We have any libertarians in the chat or anyone who wants to chime in.
I actually voted for Gary Johnson
myself. Oh, did you? So do you want to chime in here?
And well, I did just living in Kansas. My state was going to Trump no matter what. But yeah, I mean, I agree with the limited government on the social issues, but I also think that it's not there's not equal opportunity as well, and not just as far as free college and Medicare for all, which I do agree with, but just there's not equal opportunity, and I think libertarians agree with Bernie's message, even though they don't agree with taxing the rich and all that.
Right. That's interesting. That's why I think it's good to kind of have someone who has those, more libertarian. Would you consider yourself more like libertarian leaning, Kyle?
I would say libertarian-ish.
Right. I think that, you know what? I'm willing to say that as progressives, we all kind of dabble in libertarianism, and libertarians to some degree dabble in progressivism, because I think it's really important. Like none of us, I don't think there's going to be very many people that are pro big government. We all want the government to leave us alone, but it's a matter of what kind of lives we're leading. Like for me, I don't necessarily stay glued to any political philosophy or principle. I just want people to have good lives. That's why I identify more as a humanist, because I think that I'm in favor of the policies that, contribute to human happiness and, help people out and make sure that they can live just adequate lives. Like we're not asking to each have a mansion and, 20 cars. We're just asking to be able to eat when we're hungry, just basic things. So I think that to me, there is nuance to the world. And I think this is a really interesting philosophical debate. And if you ever take a political philosophy class, Cameron, I would highly recommend it if you can, if there's any available. The discussions are fascinating. And I took a political philosophy class last year, and almost every single time the class went over, because we were always just like, and it was respectful debate, but it was just so fascinating because people just have such interesting views. And at my college, people are mostly liberal, but when it comes to this issue of government interference, people really have a lot of varying views on this issue. It's really, really fascinating. And for me, I kind of have a Rawlsian perspective, which is where John Rawls is someone who said, this is how we should set up society. We'll pretend as though, we're in this veil of ignorance and we don't know anything about ourselves. We don't know if we're going to be poor or rich. We don't know if we're going to live in a first world country, in a third world country. And we should design government as if we're under this veil of ignorance where we don't know anything about ourselves. That to me is, I think, really an interesting perspective, because it gets you into this area where it's like, okay, government and how big it will be should vary depending on what we're able to give to people, what kind of lives people are able to lead. So that's kind of my 2 cents. I don't know if anybody wanted to add to this. If not, we can go to Ebon King. I know that Ebon wanted to ask about a topic too. So does anyone have anything else to say before we go to Ebon? Or Ebon, if
well,
you
there was an interesting comment that my brother made, and even though he's very much a staunch Hillary defender and denier, and I can't stand most of the stuff he puts on Facebook, he had a very astute comment of saying, don't think of it as theft, think of it as guillotine insurance, because you're basically insuring yourself against a French Revolution scenario in which the gigantic 99% ends up killing the 1%. So it's more of a sense of just, it's guillotine insurance, and at least gives you a way to think about it that isn't in the theft category. And I feel like that's pretty apt, at least. At a certain point, when you benefit off of society, you have to recontribute back into society. And this is just an unsustainable point. Even if you are in that upper 10th of 1% or so, that is unsustainable. It's not sustainable in a modern day political economy. It just won't work.
Right. I think that's actually a really interesting, I didn't think about it that way. Did your brother get that from like any political philosopher or something? Because I think that's really interesting. All right, so do we want to move on? Ebon, do you want to
Oh yeah. Well, following along this topic about libertarians is because I reached out. I had the same thing. Is like, hey, we have a lot of common ground. And then when I watch Ron Paul Liberty Report, I watch him a lot, and I also reached out to a couple of staunch libertarians, especially from like South Florida. I'm in their newsletter. He releases a lot of like very conservative things, a lot of libertarian stuff. But the word progressive is viewed as the worst thing ever.
Really?
Yes. So, but what we kind of stand for, if we didn't use the word progressive, I think they would like it. But that word progressives, or just progressive itself, seems to be very, very not regarded as good in the libertarian sector. And I don't know why. I guess I'd never dove too much into it, but they just lump it in with liberals and progressives and as the whole thing that's wrong with the world.
That's really interesting to me.
Yeah. So if you go about trying to unite the libertarians, don't use the word progressive.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone want to add anything to that discussion?
Yeah, and see, I know a lot of libertarians that actually are big fans of Tulsi Gabbard, and I think that they would vote for her as well, just based on her policy and her drug policy. Even though they don't agree with the Medicare for all and all that, they would still vote for her over neocon or.
Right. I think that I agree with you there. I've seen a lot of support for her because of her Syria policy. So that's Democrats should roll with her, but they absolutely hate Tulsi Gabbard. So it'd be interesting to see how they deal with her if she decides to run, because she's not going to be as nice as Bernie. She does not take bullshit. So that will be an interesting primary. Mick, did you want to answer that question too, or chime in? Not sure if he's.
Well, I had a funny comment, sort of related. My brother's fiance actually comes from the district where Tulsi Gabbard represents. She is in Hawaii's 2nd district. And I'm even more shocked that she and him are on the same page in being deniers and defenders of Hillary. So I'm just sort of shocked that coming from that kind of a district, and her father is even a libertarian, but he still is on board with her and on board with most progressive ideals. So it's kind of weird that she would be so defensive of Hillary.
That's really interesting, actually. Because like Tulsi, like people in her district, as far as I know, adore her because she's very, very responsive to them. Very responsive, unlike a lot of other politicians. And they'll send you the bullshit. Like if you reach out to them, if you send them a letter, they'll send you the typical formulaic response. But Tulsi really listens to them. And one thing about Tulsi is she's actually listening to progressives a lot. Like she's following the progressives like Tim Black, Emma, myself on Twitter. Like she's really taking us into consideration. It's because she knows that we're where the momentum is in terms of grassroots. It's like I don't represent the millions of progressives, but I feel like I'm part of that, and I have my finger on the pulse of what the grassroots progressives are doing. But Mick, I think, did you want to say something about? We were kind of talking about libertarianism and Tulsi. I wasn't sure if you wanted to chime in or not. No, you tried to say something.
No, I had a personal question.
Sure.
With everything that's happening, like, how do you not kind of go insane? Is it that you just vent to the camera, you vent to your audience? I mean, with the special election that happened in Montana, how the Republican candidate body slammed a reporter and yet he won. How do you just not lose hope, or, how do you not go insane from all of this crap?
Yeah, it's a question that I actually get asked a lot. And it's because it's a great question. Like for me, prior to starting a podcast, I would actually deal with a lot of mental health problems in following the news cycle. Like I would get bogged down sometimes with depression, and it still does affect me quite a bit. It does bog me down a lot. And there are periods of time where I'll just kind of check out. I'll take a break from, going on Twitter. I'll take a break from watching any YouTube videos or any news. And I always feel better when I come back from that. but there are times where it does really, like, it keeps me up at night. Like, I don't get any sleep and I just think about it. But that's kind of where the show comes in. The show, I feel like, keeps me from going completely loony and losing my mind. And you know, in the show, people, you know, they give me credit. Oh, Mike, you're very calm. Thank you for doing it. And it's it's because, you know, I couldn't, if I just talked about it once a month, I would just be screaming at the camera. But I have time. The reason why I try to be composed and calm on the show is because all week I'm mulling it over. Like, I'm reading the news stories and I'm thinking about them. I'm thinking about arguments I want to use. I'm thinking about ways I can kind of like attack it. And by the time I get to a story, I'm always late. I'm never number one, you know, in terms of getting to it first. And it's because I want that extra couple of days to think it over, because what I noticed about myself is that I'm always very reactionary. Like, when I heard about the Gianforte winning, I was very reactionary, I was very angry. But, you know, after sleeping on it and thinking about it, you know, I was able to just, okay, you know, think about the good, you know, and try to think about the positives with it. And another thing that kind of helps me to not go crazy is I've been talking with a lot of grassroots progressives that are out there, like, organizing and protesting, and they're sending me video. Like, I'm getting a lot of videos about town halls from grassroots progressives, and they're out there, you know, fighting every single day. So I kind of feel like getting discouraged isn't even an option at this point. Like, we have to keep going, and we will make progress, and we are making progress, even though it doesn't feel like it. But totally, like, I do, sometimes it kind of feels like I'm going crazy, depending on the situation, depending on the week. It does feel like I'm going crazy, but I think that it does help to kind of, rather than just turning on the camera and talking whenever there's something that's bothering me, I kind of take some time to think it over and whatnot. And when I'm done filming, I'll try to, you know, I'll go through and edit, and then I'll just take a break, you know, just take a couple of days off, play video games, you know, smoke some weed, get drunk, not think about politics, because it can really bog me down, really bog me down. I've gone through long strings of depression, especially in 2014. I went through a really deep depression during the Israeli incursion into Gaza, just really deep, because it was just, you know, I was watching the reports every morning, and I felt like sick to my stomach. And that's kind of how net neutrality has kind of affected me now, or it's just kind of consumed my mind, and I'm going to have to step back from that. But yeah, you know, the podcast is therapy, and that's kind of why I always recommend to people who have a lot of things to say, start a podcast. You don't have to do anything. I mean, look at Debbie, same progressive. She just turns on a camera and talks, and she is incredibly successful, because you can tell that's just like passion, you know what I mean? So I think it's important, and people have different ways of dealing with things, and for me, a podcast is just one of them. It's so therapeutic. I think I'd go crazy without the podcast. So even like throughout this demonetization thing, you know, people were worried, like, oh, your channel's gonna die off. It's like, okay, the channel will always be here, because I've got to complain at least once a week. Once a week is pushing it, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
if it were easier, like technologically speaking, to like actually produce a podcast and get it out polished, then I would probably do it 5 days a week. And that's ultimately the goal. But at the same time, I think that having that extra time to think it over too is really important. So it's really you know, I don't know what I want to do, but without the podcast, I'd go crazy. So that's kind of a long answer to your question.
Okay.
Well, I never knew that you were doing this, which is pretty awesome. I don't think there's really anyone else out there aside from maybe Tim that actually answers calls to people or talks to people, just that are his viewers, this is awesome. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you guys, because I get a lot out of this as well. Because it feels really nice to talk to other people, because like as Ashley talked about at the beginning of the chat, like, and Sebastian actually talked about this too, you know, you see your Facebook feed and you see people posting these idiotic things, and it actually was yesterday, I was going through a Reddit thread where they were just so anti-Hillary, and I just downvoted every fucking comment on it that was anti-Hillary. It was just so, or I mean, they were pro-Hillary.
Yeah.
And
I was gonna say
Bernie. Yeah, shill alert. No, I downloaded every anti-Bernie comment, and they were like, "Oh, it's just everyone who hates Hillary. They've succumbed to 25 years of right-wing propaganda." And I'm just sitting there like, bang my head against the screen. Are you fucking kidding me?
I'm surprised you didn't get a flashback to the Dick Cheney shooting that dude in the face and then getting him to apologize for it after the Gianforte fiasco.
Yeah, there are certain things that just drives me mad, and seeing that, oh, you've listened to too much right-wing propaganda. I don't cite right-wing propaganda against Hillary Clinton because I don't have to. She voted for the Patriot Act, the Iraq War. She wanted a Syria no-fly zone. I could, if I had fucking 100 fingers, I can go on every single one of them and just keep going and going and going and going. It's not right-wing propaganda, and it's so frustrating because people, it kind of is an example of what cognitive dissonance does to your brain. Is if you don't want to believe something, you will fight against anything that contradicts that narrative, and it's so frustrating to me. And anytime I have to question and challenge myself if there's information that comes out that contradicts it, I try to have an open mind, because it's like, man, these people they're in their own bubble and they're making me go crazy. And when I watch their craziness, because what the hell is going on? Not okay. So yeah, I downvoted literally every single comment in that thread. Fuck them.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just so people know, and also you, Kyle, Mike. So if you go to my channel, there's an after hours that I just started, so people, just our viewers of everyone's shows, can just kind of go in. It's usually after Tim Black does his show, and you could just go in and either do live chat or actually connect. It's through Ring Central. Up to 50 people can participate at the same time. So it's a lot like Google Hangouts. It's a lot better. You don't see a lot of freezes and choppiness and things like that. And it's so I don't host it all the time. I'm trying to do different stuff. So there's like 3 people who picked up and are gonna try to host it. I have to handle all the technical side because their computers are too slow. So if you want to check it out and see what it's like, I'm still trying to kind of make it a little bit better because there's some empty space. But aside from wanting to come on there, what are your thoughts of trying to have like bigger these types of panels with like Tim Black, H.A. Goodman, Jimmy Dore, there's a couple others, whoever you guys want to invite, because it seems like Tim is expanding a lot to a lot of independent media, try to get them up. And so it would just be interesting to see what your thoughts is, kind of have like a roundtable discussion. Kind of like how Bill Maher, and I don't like Bill Maher anymore, but it's kind of like how Bill Maher has a kind of a panel, and they'll pick a topic and everyone can discuss it. And I mean, it just joins, I mean, think about it. All of you guys probably have like a couple hundred to 1,000 or so viewers during your live streams, if you guys have one. So, I mean, if everyone knows about it, it's kind of like a big, like once a week thing, maybe might be pretty cool. Just to, might have, the only problem is divvying it up who hosts it each week.
Right.
So it could be just one person hosts it each week. That way they get the views, and then they drive the topic. So maybe when you host it, you drive the topic, but kind of gets everyone's like viewpoints in, and then next week you're just a guest with other people and you answered a lot of the moderating. I don't know, just what your thoughts might be on that.
Yeah.
And anyone else's.
Yeah, well,
we only see one-on-one interviews most of the time. We don't really see more than just one person interacting.
Right. I think that what you're doing, Ivan, by allowing people to kind of jump on camera and talk is awesome, because there's so much people that have a lot to say, but they don't have anyone to talk to. Like I have a lot of people that live in like the South, for example. They know no one, that's progressive. So that is awesome. In terms of town halls with like progressive YouTubers, I fucking love that idea. And I don't even think that it has to be on our channels. I think that if you just did it on your channel, since you know what you're doing, and I would fuck it up. But I mean, like if you just had like someone each week do a town hall and you kind of like fielded them questions and like hosted it, I think that would be really, really cool. I would love that. And actually that's, I've been trying to do more because I only know how to do one-on-one interviews currently. Mm-hmm. And my goal is to actually, I've been wanting to start a panel show, and I've been kind of talking to different people about a panel show, not necessarily people that are already big on YouTube, just people who are wanting to start channels just to kind of get their view. But, that requires research because again, I'm an idiot when it comes to that,
No,
but I love it.
So I help out Nico. I gave him an account, and same thing with Tim. So if you want one to share, or just like I can handle the setup, like for example OBS, if you just want to give me like the images to use, and I could go ahead and just set that up on my OBS configuration. And the OBS doesn't need your YouTube password or login account. It just needs your live stream key. So just before, you just send me the live stream key, I'll enter it in, start the OBS session, and then when you're done, you can just reset your YouTube key, live stream key. And then that's it. So it all goes through your channel, and I have all the computing stuff that can be handled here, so there's no choppiness. So
that's interesting.
Just hit me up on DM, because I always want to reach out to you, but I know you're really busy. So I'm glad that this happened, so I had a chance to talk to you and stuff like that.
No, I think that's awesome. And look, I'll say this, I'll plug you doing this on your channel, because if you're putting in the work, then what I think is only fair is that afterwards, for people that want to watch it, you can monetize it and get paid for your work. You know what I mean?
I don't monetize any of my videos. I don't do any ads.
Oh, you don't?
No, it's just strictly ad-free, money-free. I don't have a Patreon. I give out to everyone. Really? So I'm pretty good monetarily with the work that I do. So I don't expect any of that. So definitely have it on your channel.
Well, look at you. Good guy over here, Ivan, doing, trying to bring together progressives. But yeah, your idea about that is cool. I love the town hall idea. I think that is so cool. I think that, especially because I'll get like 100 different requests like every single week for things to cover. Like the article links I have, like I go through each week and I have like 150 different articles sometimes of just stuff to cover. So if somebody doesn't get to that, they could just ask me and I could just give them my opinion real quick. I mean, it won't be the best because I'm not researched on it, but I think that's so interesting. And if all people, like I'm of the mind that I think that all the progressive media hosts need to come together and especially help the smaller ones, because now with the demonetization issue, anyone who wants to start a YouTube channel is going to be really disadvantaged. So I think that if we can kind of help them, like I had Nico House on my channel a couple of weeks ago. And I like to credit myself for helping him blow up, but he was doing that anyway. He does a lot on the DNC fraud lawsuit. He's actually part. I don't want to put words in his mouth. I believe he's like part of the lawsuit. I don't know if he's a witness. And I asked him this, but I forgot his answer off camera. But he has so much insight and he has a lot of information about the DNC lawsuit that can be broken down in layman's terms. So he doesn't use legal jargon. And he also has insight on like the fraud that was committed against Bernie Sanders. So I think that people like that who have small audiences, they can get a big boost from people with bigger audiences currently. And when I was like a small YouTuber, I had Jenk tweeted out one of my videos, for example, and I was like, holy shit, And it's just like whenever a bigger YouTuber really helps you, it goes a long way. And Kyle helped me out too, I believe, and Benjamin Dixon, and Tim Black helped me out too when I was really small. So yeah, I think it's really cool to have anyone who's starting, reach out to like the newer people. Like I'll bring up Independence again with Miguel Quiros. Shout out to him. He's like, hey, Mike, what's your advice? I'm like, well, the first thing is definitely reach out to the bigger YouTubers so you can see if you can somehow network with them, because I mean, it just, YouTube really fucked up what they had. They just made it so difficult for smaller people, which sucks, because I think that YouTube, it lost what it was all about. Like its essence was someone turning on a camera and saying what's on their mind, and that video having the potential to go viral. But now if you talk about Syria, that video is not going to go viral. You know what I mean? They're going to hide that video away potentially. And now with the YouTube Hero programs, if, I don't know what the number is, but if let's say 100 people report a video because it triggered them and they got pissed off, that video is going bye-bye. So I feel like, they really messed up what they have. So it's really important now to take like the smaller YouTubers and give them a platform. I don't always get to do that. And lately I've been focusing more on like politicians that are running in 2018, but I still think it's, whenever I can, I try to have a smaller YouTuber on. And I think that the town hall is a way to kind of broaden that discussion out. So yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, Ivan, because I think it's a very good idea. I think it's really cool. I think the audiences would love that of all the different channels, because I'm pretty sure like most of the audience, there's crossover. Like me and Tim Black have a large portion of the same audience. Me and Benjamin Dixon, Kyle Kalinske, like have the same crossover audience. So I think that would be super helpful for all of them, and I'm sure that most of them would be down with it. So
I think sometimes you guys get in scuffles. Like it's hard to be, I guess, you guys, because you guys can't see it from the outside in.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm just a viewer, just like everyone else. And like on Twitter, I mean, there's a lot of fighting on Twitter between a lot of you guys on different things. But I think once you guys all get on together and you guys talk it over, things start to get settled down because you guys.
You're 100% right. Yes, when everyone, like, basically when you take all of the YouTube progressive community, they agree on 99.9% of the issues. But all of us were so fucking hard-headed. So if you even disagree with each other on like a tiny issue, it's enough for them to be at each other's throats, But I think that you're 100% right there, Yvonne. If they just talk, they agree. Because again, if you agree on 99.9% of the issues, there's absolutely no reason to be, to try to argue with someone or have a spat with someone that you agree with. So yeah, I'm with you there. I think that it's a good way to kind of keep the progressive community together. Very, very important. So hang on one second.
Yeah, I have to get going. It's been fun.
Okay, yeah, it's been really fun. Thank you, Mick, for coming back. Really appreciate it. Glad having you.
Bye.
All right, so okay, sorry about that. I just got a text message from my mom. Okay, does anyone have anything?
Are you a mama's boy, Mike?
I kind of am, yeah. My mom was going to the doctors because she had to get a tetanus shot because she hurt her foot on a nail or something. So I was just checking to make sure that everything was okay. It wasn't even about that though. But
I feel you. I'm a mama's boy too.
Are you really?
Mother?
You gotta be a mama's boy. You gotta be a mama's boy. Moms are awesome.
They're the best. You only get one.
Yep. You only get one. Absolutely. So you gotta cherish your mom.
Sometimes you get two, depending on how lucky you are.
That's true. Look at me in my straight parents bubble, huh? So we have someone that just joined. Looks like Will joined the chat. How's it going, Will? I'm not sure if you're set up, if you got mic on, but welcome to the chat room. We are glad to have you. And we have we don't have anything really planned. We kind of we say whatever is on our mind and we go from there. Because we all are progressives and we all Will left. I bored him. No, we're all progressives and we all complain about the same thing and whatnot. We all have the same pet peeves. So yeah, does anybody want to bring up a different issue and whatnot?
Well, Mike, I'd love to come on your channel sometime.
Say that again?
I'd love to come on your channel sometime when I get my own channel started up, since you talked about supporting the smaller YouTubers. But right now I'm just pretty much very busy. So yeah. I've applied to thousands of internships with my state senators and my House of Representative members, because I live around 2. I'm at the very fine line between the district, Maxine Waters, thinking about voting her out.
Oh.
Yeah, she needs to go. We tired.
Well, I think that's cool. That's inspiring. And I completely understand that you don't have time, Cameron, because again, you're a high schooler in college. Holy shit. That's awesome though. Yes. Start a channel if you can. And yeah, we'll definitely help you out because I think it's important. How the more voices, the better. I think it's super important because it really does do a lot, not just, for other people, but for you too. Like the channel, like it does a lot for me to be able to talk and, talk politics and just vent, and just say, this is bullshit. This narrative is wrong. This is what I think. I'm not infallible, but this is just my opinion, guided by the facts. It'll do a lot. And I think that if you're young, you can really start out, fast and hit the ground running because you are the future. Like, you are going to be the future of the country. So I think that your voice is crucial. So hell yes, I'm glad to hear you want to start a channel. Did you want to say something too, Kyle?
I just wanted to ask for your comment about, I personally don't watch MSNBC or CNN or Fox News or anything like that, but have you gotten to the point that, as far as I have, because occasionally I'll turn on, or Anderson Cooper or something just to see what they're talking about. And it just seems like anytime I turn on the channel, day or night, it's just Russia, Russia, Russia. And it's just, I don't know if it's annoying to you as well or not.
It's grating on my motherfucking nerves, Kyle. It is absolutely driving me insane. Because all this talk about Russian interference and Russian meddling, nobody cares about foreign interference at all. If so, they would be lambasting the 50 registered Saudi lobbyists that we have that are trying to buy off and influence our politicians. If they really cared about, treason and foreign influence, they would denounce AIPAC rather than go and speak to AIPAC, because Israel, they're not an American, they lobby on behalf of a foreign country. So we only care about foreign interference when it's convenient for us. And right now, Russia is very convenient. It's convenient to the politicians because Democrats, they can't pull their head out of their buttholes and they don't know what to talk about. They can't, give us any good policy substance because they're beholden to the donor class. So what they try to do is they'll pivot to Russia because Russia is a really safe thing that they can talk about. By saying Russia, 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 they're not pissing off their health insurance industry donors. They're not pissing off anyone, except progressives. But, it's an easy topic. So that's why they do it. Meanwhile, they're completely hypocritical. They don't talk about, if they really care about the integrity of elections, then they would be calling out closed primaries just as much as they're calling out voter ID laws. You know what I mean? They would be calling out Saudi Arabian lobbyists just as much as they're calling out the business connections that Trump and his people have with Russia, presumably. So it's very frustrating to me. And if they do want to talk about Russia, I don't really care because I'm not averse to, someone that disagrees with me. But if you're talking about Russia or anything to the detriment of the real issues, I think that is so troubling. I think that's so troubling because, like, for me right now, net neutrality has quickly become like the most important issue to me. And if I were to just focus on that and ignore everything else, then I think that would be kind of problematic. And again, I'm not going to compare myself to MSNBC. There's no way I have the reach of them. But that's what they've done with Russia. Like, they talk about Russia, 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 and they're completely ignoring the real issues. And I just posted a video about how they're contemplating whether or not they're going to make Russia the cornerstone of their campaign in 2018. And I read that story, died a little bit inside. I'm not surprised by it. Cameron is face palming. No, I'm not surprised by it. But at the same time, it's like, oh, come on. And one dimension of the story I didn't talk about in this video, which I wish I did. Actually, maybe I did. It's been a couple of days. But they're debating if they should talk about Russia or healthcare. And I didn't even question what type of healthcare they're going to be talking about. And clearly, it's just defending the Affordable Care Act. It's not talking about moving on to John Conyers' bill, HR 676. And so they're all wrong. I thought 50% of them were wrong, but they're all wrong now. So, man, that's a lot. That's super long. And I actually started to rant, Kyle. So I apologize for getting into a rant. But yeah, that's how I feel right now about Russia. Did you have anything else you wanted to ask or add to that?
Well, just as far as a comment that I saw to get today from John McCain, not that I listen or care about him, but he said that Russia is a greater threat to America than ISIS is right now, and that just made me just do a face palm.
I actually saw that. I saw the article that you were referring to. And the thing about John McCain is Democrats will now use that as an example to smear progressives and say, John McCain cares about Russia. Why don't progressives care? John McCain thinks that Canada is the greatest threat to America. John McCain would invade Canada tomorrow if you gave him the opportunity. He is the biggest warmonger in our country's history, perhaps. John McCain is always going to be trying to think of these countries as threats because John McCain really wants to bomb a lot of countries. He loves bombs. He probably gets a bigger hard-on for bombs than Brian Williams because any time he has a chance to demonize another country and say they're a threat, he jumps on board. So he sees this Russia. He's like, what? Democrats talking about this? Well, fuck it. I don't care. Oh, I'm going to talk about it too. And they look at that as, oh, there's a Republican that's on board now. It's like, It's John McCain. He wants to bomb Russia. He wants to bomb Iran. He wants to bomb, Europe. If you let him, he's a fucking crazy person. The only thing he's reasonable on. He bombed Croatia. The only thing he's reasonable on is torture, and that's because he was tortured. So it's like he could think about, oh, okay, I'm a human being. I don't like torture, so therefore I'm against torture. But he can't think I'm a human being, and humans don't like to be bombed. He hasn't been bombed, so he can't. He has no sense of He doesn't do sympathy. He only does empathy, apparently. So I saw that
bombing of John McCain's house.
Yeah.
State sanctioned bombings.
It's so I absolutely hate John McCain so much, and I try to avoid the word hate, but he's the biggest warmonger, and because he disagrees with Republicans once in a while, he has this extra veneer of legitimacy when in actuality he's not. John McCain will be on the side of war whenever he has the chance to do so. He's not a good person. Democrats shouldn't use him as an example. And even Donna Brazile, she used Dick Cheney as an example. She said, I don't agree with him on anything, but on this Russia thing, with them hacking the election and it being an act of war, I agree. It's like, oh, you don't agree with Dick Cheney on anything but this act of war? The biggest warmonger in the country, bankrolled by defense contractors. You agree with him on the one issue that allows him to maybe bomb another country. Maybe you're on the wrong side of this issue. Maybe we should think a little bit harder about this. Nobody wants to think about it. It's really getting on my nerves. And look, here's the thing. The Russia issue, I honestly don't like it. If this is an important issue because there's progressives that disagree with me, and I think that's perfectly fine. But you have to make sure that you make room for other issues, because if you just focus on Russia, then everything else will fall by the wayside. And Russia is not a long-term strategy for Democrats. Like, if you care about the party, you should be trying to push them to get on board with issues. How is, 10 years from now, are they still going to be able to run an election on Russia and win? No. And then guess what? We're going to get Donald Trump 2.0. We might get Ted Nugent next time. I mean, we're screwing ourselves over so much by focusing on this, and it just hurts. So, I don't want to diminish an issue that's important to people, but I mean, for fuck's sake, we've got to have a little bit of, room for anything else. And like you said, Kyle, all they focus on is Russia in the mainstream media, and damn, it's definitely to the detriment of everything else. Go ahead, Ivan.
So who do you think it hurts the Russia narrative the most, the Republicans or the Democrats?
So that's a good question. That's a good question, because I know it does hurt Republicans in the short term. Long term, I think it hurts Democrats more. I think that most people are persuaded by Democrats currently. I don't think I'm on the winning side of this argument by any stretch of the imagination, because even if you go to town halls, the people are asking their politicians, about Russia, why won't you do this? Support an investigation and whatnot. And it's fine. I support an investigation. I don't give a fuck. Just end it. I'll support whatever. But just end it. But it's tough to say. Long term, certainly, if Democrats make this the cornerstone of their platform, they're going to lose again. There's no way. But right now, people like it because they're the heroes, right? Anyone who is fighting against treason, you're the hero. And it's kind of this tactic we've seen time and again. So before I was even born, I read up on how, not before I was born, I was reading, but I read up on a time before I was born where the United States, during the communist era, they would take certain countries and demonize them, like Cuba, and we'd make them our biggest enemy. And that really helped, politicians. It was politically expedient. And on the other side, Cuba would use them as an example and say, see, America hates us. And then they would cultivate legitimacy that way. So we're helping Russia, because like Noam Chomsky said, we look like the laughing stock of the world because we're all crying about how Russia meddled in our election. But if you ask them, well, what do you mean by meddling? Then they'll say, oh, well, they leaked emails of our politicians. Well, were those fake emails? No, they were real. Oh, okay. So they meddled by giving us the words of our politicians. Got it. That's meddling. But, they say, well, if Donald Trump colluded with them to, and I'm sorry, I'll answer your question, Ivan. I'm getting to a rant again, as you can see. If Donald Trump colluded with them to release those emails, then clearly he wanted to influence the election. It's like, yeah, he wanted to influence the election. The he was trying to win the election. Democrats tried to influence the election, you know, by releasing ads. We all try to influence the election. That's just part of the process. Obama tried to influence the French election by endorsing Macron. We all, like, it's just not a big deal to me. You know what I mean? Like, unless you could show me that they hacked voting booths, it's just not persuasive to me at all. But in terms of who it's going to hurt, I do think it is hurting Republicans short term because, again, like I said, I'm perfectly willing to acknowledge that I am not in the winning opinion here. I'm in the minority opinion, and that's fine. But long term, you know, Democrats need to focus on something. And I've been saying, you know, if they make Medicare for all, you know, the main thing they run on, they could win. They could be exponentially more popular than they are now. But if they just focus on Russia, I think this is going to run out of steam fast. And the reason why, you kind of see two different things happening right here. So you see the mainstream media pushing Democrats to talk about Russia because the mainstream media makes a ton of money from this. I mean, Rachel Maddow is beating her own record, you know, in terms of ratings. But then you see the Democrats, they're being influenced by mainstream media, and then they're influencing the mainstream media because this is politically expedient for Democrats to do that. So it's really mutually beneficial for the mainstream media to talk about this and for Democrats to talk about this short term. Long term, that's not going to be the case. And there's a reason why Fox News actually was they got left behind when it comes to MSNBC. I think for, what was it, the week before last? MSNBC was the #1 network, and Fox News came in third. And this is because the whole Russia thing, people are fascinated by it. And it, you know, it short term, again, this is going to be great for them, but long term, you're still not going to have a platform. You're still going to have the same problem, and we're just putting it off with Russia. So yeah, I hope that answered your question, E, but I went on a long tangent.
No, that's good.
There's also an interesting effect that's...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. There's an interesting effect that's been happening in the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks where Republicans are starting to push the narrative that the Democrats are only bringing up Russia because they want to hide their own incompetence in the 2016 election. And that is what progressives have been saying for so long. So effectively, the Democrats have screwed themselves by staying on the Russia bandwagon for so long that even the Republicans are now using progressive linguistics to push down corporate Democrats. Like, that's not a good sign.
You're absolutely right. And the worst part to me, Sebastian, is that yeah, they can use this excuse. Russia, you know, meddled in the election. They meddled in the election. But what about the 2014 election when you lost the Senate? What about the 2010 election when you lost the House of Representatives? I mean, you can't have an excuse for every single election. At some point, you've got to face your demons, and you've got to come to terms with the fact that you are completely just like, you are not representing people. There's a reason why we have a record number of independents registered in the country. It's because you're not catering to that left-wing base. I mean, both parties, they keep moving further and further to the right, and they're just leaving out this huge contingent of the base that is desperate. I mean, the Bernie Sanders supporters, the Jill Stein supporters, even some libertarians, they're all desperate, and they want a party to appeal to them. You know what I mean? And they're leaving it behind. And it's so frustrating to me because what we're saying is just common sense. We're just normal people. We're not, you know, consultants who are paid millions of dollars, but the consultants who are paid millions of dollars are telling them, well, this is what people care about, so we should focus on this. When it's like, maybe you should actually talk to someone who isn't a millionaire or a billionaire. Talk to someone who makes minimum wage, and they'll tell you what's most important to them, you know? So that's the worst part to me is with this whole Russia debacle, is that so many more issues just get left by the wayside. And if you don't get on board with this, then you're a bad person. You're a Kremlin shill. You're a Russian agent. As I stated, I'm a huge Kremlin agent. You know, Vladimir Putin, I'm on his payroll. I'm getting paid the big bucks here, you know? So it's so annoying to me because we've basically anything, like, I wasn't around for McCarthyism. You know, I was not even a thought then, but this is basically McCarthyism. You know, in 2017, we're seeing the same thing. If you aren't on board with this narrative, you're a traitor, you know? So it's incredibly disheartening to kind of see the same thing happening that we rightfully criticized before happening again. Like, we can't be introspective enough to see that it's a problem. But before I go more on this, let me say hello to Jelly Donut for joining the chat. Welcome to the chat, man. How are you doing?
Yo,
How's it going?
I don't know how this works. This is on my phone.
Hey, that works out. You could do it on your phone. You could do it. We had Sebastian was on in a cab for the first part of it. So yeah, you could do it anywhere. How's your week been going? Do you have anything you want to talk about? I'm going off on a tangent about Russia, but we've kind of talked about a bunch of different issues throughout the chat.
Yeah, you guys are going strong. It's like almost 2 hours. You guys are going and going and going.
Yeah,
Props.
yeah, it goes by very fast. It goes by very, very fast. I always planned for an hour, but it always goes over. The last one, I don't remember how. The last one might have been into 3 hours, but it was certainly above 2 hours. And that's why I like having you guys on camera too, because before the whole demonetization thing, I didn't have as much members and Patreon patrons, so I would have not as many people that wanted to come on camera. But now that there's more people, there's just more people willing. The pool of people willing to get on camera has increased, and these are much more fun, than before, because now we actually can have a discussion about issues or debate about issues. We haven't really debated, but yeah, I love doing these. It's a great way for all of us to kind of just let off some steam and complain about things that piss us off.
I agree completely, man. Like this is very refreshing. One quick comment I could say, just to get into the discussion, is that the American politics, to me, it seems like a caricature. Like Trump is the perfect caricature of what has been degrading for a few decades now, right? Like it's the mere fact that the TV show host has won the presidency first time running. I mean, that's just fucking ridiculous, and it's just I mean I'm comfortable in Canada for now, so I'm okay. But it's so funny, looking at this shit.
I think that you are saying something that is true to the point that it makes us all uncomfortable because it's so true. Donald Trump is a caricature. You're 100% right, because a lot of us will say Donald Trump is embarrassing us. He's making us look like fools. He's kind of accurate in terms of representing us, like with the way that we've just been degrading, with the way that Congress is just so ridiculous. And so I think it's important for people like you from Canada, as an outsider looking in, to tell us this, because it's so true. You're right. He's a caricature, but it's not inaccurate.
Well, I mean, it's a generalization, but from a distance, I guess it can be quite enlightening.
Absolutely. Actually, someone from Canada during the primaries posted a video about Bernie Sanders and about American politics just in general, saying, "What the fuck is wrong with you, America? You have Bernie Sanders. He's going to make your country more like Canada. He's trying to give you, a single-payer healthcare system. What the fuck is wrong with you? And what's wrong with your media? Why isn't your media doing more to promote his campaign? What is wrong with you guys? Wake up!" And it went viral because it was so true. It takes a good friend to tell you that your shit's stinking, and you need to wake up. And Canada is our neighbor, the closest friend we got here. And I think it's important for you guys to chime in and let us know that we're making a fool of ourselves.
Yeah, no, I mean, anytime glad to chime in.
Well, we appreciate it.
And by the way, I'm you're saying Canada, just a quick clarification. By my accent, you're probably already saying that I'm from the Soviet Union, so I've been in Canada for quite a while, but I've seen both sides of the story, and there's some worrying signs, there's some worrying signs in the Canadian politics and the US politics that are reminiscent of the and EU. Like look at the European Union, like it's just disintegrating slowly. It's
And when you have one country that can, like Germany, that controls all the printing of the money, it's going to be tough for the other countries to be okay with that.
Well, yeah, that's why Britain fucking, just left.
Yeah.
Well, Britain didn't take part in the euro, so they kind of left for different reasons. I
Oh,
don't
that's
know.
right. They still kept the pound, didn't they?
Yeah.
Oh. Do you
But,
Oh, go ahead, Iban.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna ask if Jelly Donut, if you wanted to kind of chime in on the Russian hysteria, because I think your perspective would be interesting. Because we're complaining about how our politicians, our media, they're just so caught up on this story that Russia meddled in our election. So what do you think about that? Because we all think most of us, I think it's completely ridiculous and it's stupid. So I'd be interested to get your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, you called it. I think, but I think it's not as easy as that because I'm comfortable in Canada, but in Russia, people are reacting differently. In Russia, people are running to the flag. So, I mean, the people who understand kind of what's the underlyings of what's going on, just the nuances and the intricacies, they understand, I guess, the situation a little bit more. It is not so bad. Like the situation isn't that bad, honestly. Like I don't think that the situation between the U.S. and Russia today is completely and utterly like doomsday. I think it's sustainable. They can sustain this for quite a while, but the people in Russia, of course, I mean, they have a different perspective. They have the sanctions, whatever. The news, the news are always talking that everything is U.S. fault and everything. So the atmosphere there is not great in that regard. Like there is real anti-Americanism.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, from my perspective here, I think that this can go on for a while. Like there's nothing tremendous. Like I mean, you can't say that there's nothing tremendous about today because everything is tremendous about today, in a sense. But
What are they anti-American about? Just our policies, or just because we're American? Hello?
Yo, I didn't hear the last part.
Oh, I was just wondering what they're so anti-American about. Is it our policies? Is it?
Well, I mean, just look at the American stance. Look at the American media today. Every newspaper, every channel, CNN, ABC, MSNB, like it doesn't matter. Everybody is just chiming Russia, Russia, Russia. So even people who are connected to the internet, like even people who are, who don't just eat Russian propaganda, like even people who go to CNN, who go to different, like forget CNN, people who go to Counterpunch, all that stuff, even those people see that stuff, right? And it's just like this hysteria. And there's this hysteria brewing in both Washington and Moscow.
That's really interesting.
It would be interesting.
Go ahead, Sebastian.
It would be interesting to see how much sort of the Russia hysteria is actually making Russia, if it's making Russia more powerful than it actually is, by claiming they've done things that they haven't necessarily done. And by doing that, sort of helping to prop up this idea that they can do far more than they can. So when Putin goes, wait, he thinks we did. Oh, okay. So now I have a little bit more leverage now in these negotiations because people are freaking out over, we apparently can hack their elections, even though we didn't or may not have done it. Like they think we do.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I like that idea because he could Putin could say, look, regardless of whether we interfered with the American elections or not, you guys don't know. That's how good we are, or good I am, how powerful I am. Is even if I did or didn't, you guys still don't know.
That's actually true. That's absolutely true. And I've heard think tanks all over the U.S. and Europe, like Carnegie, Hoover Institution, you name it. All of those guys are all saying that basically Russia is this weak state. It is a weak state, but it's doing things that are proportionally out of their range.
That to me is really interesting. I want to say something about the flag, how they're kind of rallying around the flag, and how it's having a rally around the flag effect. Because you kind of see this in both countries. So Putin, I'm sure his approval rating is higher because of all this. And then in the United States, I kind of feel like you have not necessarily rally around the flag effect, but you have people kind of clinging to their American values, saying, "Oh, how dare Russia, influence our election and whatnot." And so you kind of see this building up of nationalism in both countries, I feel like, to a degree. I know that Russia and general and America, they're both very nationalistic countries. They're both patriotic. So I think that when mix nationalism with imperialism, it could be a problem. I think it's interesting, though, that you say that the situation is sustainable. And I think that you make a good point, because this isn't the first time we've all been in this situation. We had the Cold War to look back on. But yeah, I think it is interesting, though, to get the outside perspective, because I didn't really think about how others view the U.S. until Noam Chomsky said it. He said, we're the laughingstock of the world right now. We're the laughingstock. Everybody thinks we're crazy because we're crying about how Russia interfered with our election when we've been interfering with elections since forever. I mean, Bill Clinton, and he really had a stake in one of the Russian elections. I'm not going to be able to say his name, but Bill Clinton, during his administration, was really pushing for a certain president in Russia to win. I mean, we do this all the time. I mean, what would happen if Vladimir Putin endorsed Donald Trump? Countries do that all the time. Obama endorsed Macron. So I mean, I'm just curious. I don't know how far we're going to go down the rabbit hole in terms of demonizing any and everything that Russia does. So I think it's really interesting that, to hear that perspective from Russia, Jelly Donut, the way you're talking about how...
By the way, my name is Yaro.
Say that again?
Yaro,
okay.
Yaro.
Okay. That's better than Jelly Donut.
So
it feels...
That was deep.
Well, because I'm sitting here... Oh, go ahead.
If I can paraphrase Ivanka Trump in her book, she actually said the appearance of having a certain trait or value is sometimes better than actually having that trait or value. And it was featured in that John Oliver segment on her. And it somehow rings very true to this sort of the appearance of having abilities may be stronger than actually having those abilities. So it'll be an interesting thing to watch as this unfolds even further. Unfortunately, we can't even take an objective view with just this unfolding nature of this dichotomy because we're perpetuating it. So it's even harder.
It's actually kind of true, because even when you're caught with saying, hey, you don't really have these powers to do all this stuff, it's like, exactly, so why am I should be excused. There's nothing I did, it was all you guys. It kind of has like a, plausible deniability. I don't know if that's the right term.
Yeah, you're lowering the bar for what constitutes as someone being powerful to do something, because by saying that Russia meddled in the election, and what they say is meddling is releasing Hillary's own emails. One, we haven't even determined that it was Russia. I mean, I haven't seen the intelligence reports. They won't show it to us. But second of all, even if they did, if they could prove that, that's meddling in the election. Are you fucking kidding me? There's a reason. Where did the term banana republic came from?
What's funny is it's meddling in the election showing that Hillary Clinton was meddling in the election.
What's funny is they're equating what's journalism with meddling.
Right.
Let's say Russia actually did release the emails, and that's a big if because I'm on that bandwagon of thinking Seth Rich was actually the one who released it. I'll tell you that now. But let's just say Russia did it. Russia's doing what journalists are supposed to do because we have such shitty journalists in this country where we're relying on CNN that doesn't tell us anything. Which is why I don't even turn on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News. In fact, I remember when I was a kid, I would just turn off the TV from the news. And then when I was on YouTube one day, I found Kyle Kulinski. And then a week or so later, I found Mike. And then like a year or so later, I found Jimmy Dore, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just amazing that they're equating what's journalism with meddling in an election.
It's painful, isn't it?
There's that great quote from that one. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Sebastian.
There's that one quote from that focus group with, I think it was BBC interviews. What are they saying? If
have you been on the subway yet?
If we hadn't been caught messing with the primary, we would be in power right now, because that's effectively what cookies are. You're saying if we weren't caught, we'd totally be running things by now. That's not okay.
Yep, that is exactly it. They're basically saying, yeah, you influenced the election by showing how we were like Iban said, how we influenced the election. It's just completely, not only is it ironic, but it makes my head explode when I think about their claims here, because they're not willing to dive into it. I mean, they don't talk about how these emails, like, they haven't denied the authenticity of the emails. Well, Donna Brazil kind of did, but I mean, these are real emails. They're not denying that. But, you know, by releasing what they said, that rigged the election, it doesn't make sense. Maybe don't be corrupt next time. You know, don't try to influence the primaries. Don't leak questions to Hillary Clinton, and you'd have nothing. I mean, I've made this point before. If Russia leaked Bernie Sanders' emails, could that have harmed him? No, because Bernie Sanders wasn't doing anything that was corrupt in the first place. And furthermore, the reason why it's still, you know, I'm not even willing to take that Russia did it narrative fully is because we haven't seen the intelligence reports, and everything that we know is that the DNC emails were leaked by a leaker, and the John Podesta emails was a result of his own stupidity. Well, I shouldn't say that because he was phished, but I mean, people can get phished. It is easy to get phished, but I mean, it's his own fault, you know. So we're not even operating with, you know, full facts, but you have to start at Russia released the emails before you even have a discussion, when really we have to go back and say, is it actually the case that Russia leaked the emails? And taking it a step further, which is what I did in this last video, is, do I give a shit? No, I don't give a shit. Still don't give a shit, and I probably won't. And again, if you could find me evidence that a foreign power like hacked our election grids, then I'm one of the first people to come out. You know, we're all gonna, of course, come out and condemn that. But I mean, releasing emails, who gives a shit? I mean, I don't care.
We're gonna blame Mexico now.
We're gonna blame Mexico. Yep. What if Mexico
wanted
tried to
Trump to
release
win
Trump's
so they could
emails?
tell him we're not building that fucking wall? They wanted Trump to win so they could tell him that. Mexico rigged the election.
Yeah.
Sad.
Goddamn Mexico.
Them damn Mexicans.
That's why we want
with our democracy.
Yeah. I want to build a wall around myself, you know. Fuck the rest of the country. I think we need to have, like, we got to separate. We have all the progressives on one side of the country and just build a wall, you know, away from all the crazy neoliberals and conservatives and whatnot. And that's the way that we can stay sane, because this is the reason why we do these chats, guys, because without them, you have to vent sometimes. And I think it's fun to vent. I think that it's important that we get this off our chest, because goddamn, you know, we're surrounded by craziness right now.
Yeah. One thing to add on to it is if Hillary and the D want to go on this narrative that they were hacked and it's not leaked-ish, I mean, can you think about the DNC being hacked, instead of leaked, the John Podesta being hacked and not leaked, Or then that goes to questions about Hillary Clinton's private server. If that stuff gets revealed, is that, I mean, that's a huge security risk right there. If it was hacked, then I mean, either way is actually a security issue, right? If you're hacked, you got a problem with your security vulnerabilities. If you're leaked, that means you've actually got someone on the inside that's revealing a lot of information. But whether that information is because of corruption, or if it's not, like if it didn't have any corruption involved in it, then it wouldn't have any issues at all. We wouldn't really be caring so much about this in the progressive community. Anyways, that was it.
That's exactly it. Yeah, because like you said, it is a security issue, and that's why people are really frustrated with her, you know, in the first place with the email server. And, you know, what's interesting is that Michael Tracy, I think, is someone who made this. Yeah, it is Michael Tracy. He made this point that, you know, during the primaries, they told us that the email investigation was a nothing burger. And then once James Comey released this email, then he said it was a big, you know, something burger. So they keep changing the story and moving the goalpost. And, you know, they're basically finding ways to obfuscate and, you know, pivot so that way they don't have to address their lies head on and their corruption head on. But there's really no way to escape it. They're cornered, and the only thing they can do is scream about Russia. It's the one way that they can cultivate any level of sympathy. So it's incredibly just obnoxious to watch them do this and not just straight up say they messed up because of their own wrongdoing. We can admit that we made mistakes, you know, just do that. We all make mistakes, you know, just admit that you made a mistake. But let me say hello to Angel, just joined the chat. Welcome to the chat.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Angel.
I finally figured out how to get on.
I didn't post the link in the chat at the beginning, which I usually do. I just sent it out via email, but I think it's probably good to still post it just for people who come on later on. But welcome.
I came through the email, but it didn't bring me right to live, so I'm like, oh, how do I do this?
Oh, okay. Well, we're glad to have you.
But I've been listening.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've seen your comments too. Okay. Thank you for getting involved and whatnot. Is there anything that you kind of wanted to talk about or chime in about? I know you've been hearing us complain about Russia and whatnot, and me going on a tangent.
No, it's not complaining. It's factual, but I'm laughing because we're so sick of talking about it, but that's all we ever talk about.
You're so right.
Because I'm like, why am I still talking about this? I'm ready to slit my own throat. I'm just sick of it. But maybe to jump off topic, something that's really important to me, getting back to healthcare a little bit, because it's kind of two-pronged, you know, in my household, healthcare and military. You know, I have a daughter that struggles with mental illness, and she just graduated from college. So now she's saddled with tens of thousands of dollars in student debt, which I now will have to pick up because of her inability to work. So, you know, healthcare is super important to me besides the student loan debt. And I have a son that went in the military to avoid student loan debt and got screwed. He joined the military and was promised they told him not to go in the National Guard to do reserves. He did reserves, came back, did everything he was supposed to do, and now they're telling him, no, we're not going to pay for you to go to school until you do your first deployment. So the trick is, if you're not in school full time, you're active to be deployed. So pretty much right now, you know, he got a few boxes a couple weeks ago, and he's on standby. So, you know, it's a little. I'm pissed. I'm pissed that I should have known better, you know. Yeah. I asked for it in writing, but who the hell understands that military documentation?
One thing you can tell him to do, that there's a lot of things he can take courses online that the military provides, especially on certain bases for free. He gets credits for it. So he can do a lot of things like that. And then so it's kind of like a community college. It's an online college. And then after that, once he gets enough credits, he can pay for the rest of his college tuition when he leaves the military after his deployment. So there's a lot of things he can do to take advantage of it, but they don't tell you up front all the things you have to go through.
Yeah, no, it was I guess you know, the whole dog and pony show, and I guess we fell for it. He didn't want to be stuck with $60,000 in debt like his sister, so he said, oh, I'll go to the military, Mom, so you don't have to worry about it. And it's all a facade. feel bad that these kids get screwed. You know, they go to the military to avoid debt, and
But there's also a thing. So your daughter, what she can also do. Sorry if I'm taking up so much.
Oh no, go ahead. Actually,
No,
I want to run
thank
to the
you, I
restroom.
appreciate
So continue talking.
So if she works at a nonprofit for 10 years, that will, I think it's 10 years, but that nullifies. There's a special provision where it nullifies any student debt that you took for college. So even though she may not make a lot in a nonprofit sector, she won't have to pay off her debt at the end of like 10 years of working in a nonprofit sector.
was it true recently that that whole? I was reading something about it that now some people are getting screwed.
Sorry, breaking up.
That to do, and I believe it was maybe more among teachers or something within the educational system, where they were now telling them, you know, you did everything you needed to do, but we're still not going to, you know, suspend your debt. And I believe there might even be a class action lawsuit that's been started recently in regards to that.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a pretty big uproar because there's so many people that work in the nonprofit sector. And if they
it was
spend
actually a segment on TYT not too long ago.
Okay.
And I was watching it, and I just get so angry because these young kids these days get so screwed.
Yeah.
I mean, every time you turn around, they're getting screwed, and then you have people screaming, "Oh, they're lazy. They're entitled. They don't." I'm like, look at all the BS they have to deal with. I mean,
And, yeah.
I guess every generation thinks it was harder in their time, you know. So I had to walk to school 10 miles in 5 feet of snow. I get it.
And
But
that's another thing is like I grew up poor, so I didn't know all the stuff that happens with money. You get a lot more opportunities. So I learned a lot more things like you can do for getting your taxes lower. You know, and it's the same thing after I've been in the military. I also did the Head Start, like was it I forgot his name, Cameron. And so there's a lot of things that you can use to propel yourself. It's just that information, you have to look for it. It's never given to you. And that's
so true.
The part that really sucks.
That's true.
Let me chime in with
I did.
hello
I
to
started
Lisa.
community college early.
All right, hang on one second. I just want to say hello to Lisa who just joined. Thank you so much for coming in the chat. I know you've been kind of following along.
I'm driving.
I love it.
Oh,
just don't get in an accident.
Yeah, be careful. We don't want that on our conscience.
No.
Okay, go ahead, Cameron.
I was telling Angel that what I did was I started community college while I'm in high school right now, simply because I fear the student loan debt crisis. I am fully, since I'm part of a unified district, we get to go to community college free while we're in high school. So I'm going to get out of the way and I'm going to have to deal with the $35,000 triple crap at a UC or a Cal State. That'll only be for 2 years.
it's true because the first 2 years are all prerequisites anyway. So the first 2 years you go to a major university, and because public education is not preparing them for college, the first 2 years is covering what they should have covered in, 11th and 12th grade, the maths, the sciences, the Englishes. So I agree wholeheartedly. I think the first 2 years you should go to a community college. I mean, economically it makes sense as well. It's just a waste of money to go to a big 4-year school for the first 2 years to take those prerequisites, those Englishes and those sciences. It's a waste of money. It's crazy.
Yep, I could kind of empathize with your kid's situation. I just got my bill for student loans, and I haven't started repaying it back yet because I've been in school, so I took a sabbatical. So they hit me up with my first payment due on June 15th, $799.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, that's a mortgage. That is a mortgage.
Oh my God.
And I just was approved for a deferment because I'm still, even though I'm not taking classes, I'm still getting my degree. So yeah, it's like a mortgage. And then when you think about how, people my age were not buying houses or anything, we have a mortgage.
You can't.
You just can't do it. We're told that we can't get a good job unless we go to school. But then when we go to school, all the money we make goes to student loans when we get out. So Yeah, I totally. It's like we're all getting duped. Both of your kids were duped in like different ways. It just you can't get away from, and that kind of frustrates me when you tell me about your son, because it's like he tried to do something else to get away from it, and he was still screwed. So it's just like you can't. We're in a rigged system where you just can't win.
Absolutely.
It feels impossible.
You know, it is. It's systems rigged. You take one step forward, two steps back. It's the constant. It's almost like they want to keep people in perpetual. Like just constantly being poor. They don't want people to get ahead. It's just a constant thumb on you. Like every time you try to get ahead, especially, and I keep saying it, but the younger generation, you're screwed. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it. You're so screwed between debt and
with all this going,
basement. You know, they call you basement dwellers. Well, you kind of have no choice. What are you going to do? I mean, where are you going to live paying $700 in student loan debt?
Right.
That's insane.
So, with all the stuff that's going on with Russia, the thing that I was talking about, it is 10 years if you work in a public nonprofit. So it's called public service loan forgiveness. So that can forgive all the debt, no matter how much it is, after 10 years. The thing is, Donald Trump with Betsy DeVos, they're trying to eliminate it. So,
of course.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And I don't think I've ever because I didn't even think about it until now. But yeah, I just read up about it, and yeah, that there's a lot of people worrying about this because Betsy DeVos is in there, and Donald Trump, you don't know what they're going to do, and they're trying to get rid of it. So that option might be going away.
I think that applied also, the same subsidy that you're talking about, Ebon, I think that also applied to people who did government work too. I believe it's linked. But yeah, you're right. That's it's on the chopping block now, which is really horrible, because for people who want to pay back their student loans, you don't even really have finding a job is really, really difficult. Like I got out of school when I got my bachelor's, and I was working at Blockbuster, and I was staying there until I could find a better job. I ended up not finding anything else, so I was just promoted, and then Blockbuster closed. Of course, that was a dead end. But yeah, and I'm like, well, when I get out and get my master's degree, I'm gonna get such a good job. Nothing, and I ended up started doing YouTube. So it's just the kids who, like all my nieces and nephew, I feel like, even though millennials are screwed, I feel like with each generation, they're getting more screwed over. And it's just, unless we get someone who is willing to do drastic reforms, like a president who's willing to do drastic reforms, like there's no way to eliminate it. Like what we've seen with Democrats is they'll cap your student loan repayment plan at 10%. Donald Trump's doing 12.5%. It's like, well, okay, that does help to a degree, I'll be honest, but that will be with us until we die. Like it's never going away. And if I die, before my spouse, then that debt will get passed on. It's just you can't escape it. It's like you're trapped. It's like you kind of took like a money from the mafia, but the mafia is the government, and you're screwed. You ain't getting away from it. You got to come up with the cash. But how do you do that? It's just it's so much.
Except
money.
The mafia can't take your tax return.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Exactly. No,
unbelievable.
Yeah, it sucks. It really sucks. And there's so many people, like not just about student loans. Like I'll have people who, back when the Trump Care thing started to come up, somebody sent in an email saying, Mike, is this really going to go through? Because if this goes, if Trump Care passes, then I'll die. I was expanded, the Medicaid expansion in my state, and I was able to get coverage and whatnot. And now I have so much medical issues. Do you think it's going to go through? And, it's like, I don't know what to say, because I don't know if it will. I don't know if it won't. But, there's so many people that are like screwed over, not just with student loans, but with medical debt and so many different things. Like you can't. And yet at the same time, when this is all happening, when we're all screwed over, taxes are getting decreased for the very top. It's like, it's just to add insult to injury, where it's just like, it makes me so angry when I sit there and just think about it, just stew over it, because it's so unfair, and just with young people like that are graduating college. When I did a story recently about how student loan, they're going to increase next year. The interest rate will increase for the incoming year. So we have all these kids graduating today, and they're getting hit with this news. And I actually wasn't going to cover it, because I'm like, oh my god, like this
You're almost sad to
the
say
story
it.
that I'm sharing. Yeah, it's like I don't want to deliver this news, but at the same time, I think it's important, you know, because there are people that are optimistic, they have their whole lives ahead of them, and they know they have to go to school to get, you know, a good job, but now they're going to get screwed over.
Mike,
it's so
did you get caught up in, there was that short time period, I think it was only like a month, where the cap on the interest rate for student loans was lifted, and because I think they were waiting, or it was part of the government shutdown, and then the student loans rates went up to like 13% on one of my daughter's loans for one semester, one random semester. It was like 3 or 4 years ago. So she has one particular loan for one semester that the interest rate is 13, almost 14% on it. And I'm like, so to figure out whether or not, you know, to put that cap back on, which they did anyway. I think they just extended it another 5 or 6 years. But during that short time frame, I can't even imagine someone who maybe had a $20,000 loan at that point. For her, it was only like 3 or 4 grand. But if you had like a $20,000 or $30,000 loan at that point at 13-14%, that's rate, like that's ridiculous. And I just don't even know, how can they even sleep at night? How can they sleep at night, like knowing that just people are getting screwed over so bad? It just drives me crazy.
Yeah, it's, you know what,
money there to comfort them.
Yeah, it's very confusing to me because all of my, like, I have different student loans for each year too, and they each have different insurance rates, and I'm not exactly sure what the exact percentage is, but I always get the email, you know, your student loans are acquiring debt, and once you get to graduate school, you don't have the option to take unsubsidized or subsidized. You can only take unsubsidized. So
yeah,
you
which
know,
starts
as soon
accruing.
as you take that loan,
Yep.
it just starts accruing immediately. Somebody was trying to say something. I don't want to interrupt. I think it was Lisa. Was that you?
It's a little choppy, but anyways, thank you everyone. Thank you, Mike. I got to get going, but hopefully I'll catch you on the next one.
All right. Well, thanks for joining. We really appreciate having you, Ivan.
All right. Thanks. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Lisa, are you able to hear us at all? It's kind of choppy. Well, Lisa, if you can hear us, feel free to chime in. You were kind of cutting in and out. And she ended up dropping, so I might have just not been able to come through. Okay, so it's 6:37. We've been on for about 2.5 hours. Let's go ahead and let's get into one more topic before cutting off the chat, because the people who are watching this afterwards are going to have like a 5-hour video, but I'm sure, you know, you can watch it in parts. I know that this is a lot. This is always a lot, but you know, we have so much fun and just talking about the issues that, you know, you kind of lose track of time. Like I always plan for an hour, it goes way over, but you know, I think it's important that we kind of talk about the issues and we kind of vent. It's nice. It feels good to do that. So does anybody have anything that they wanted to talk about that I haven't talked about on the show, or that I did cover but you want like a follow-up, or just anything you want to mention, or if you want to talk about your own situation? Like I think that was great that Angel shared you know, what her kids are going through, because it sucks. It's all too common. It's a story that is so common, and you know, this is becoming the norm now, where everybody has some type of debt story, and it's so disheartening. You know, this is a bubble that will pop. The economy won't be able to sustain this much. You know, people who can't buy just everyday things, so it sucks. So Lisa asked, how long are you going to be on? So let me respond in text. We'll say a half an hour. Does that sound about right to everyone for us to get into an issue? And
Yeah,
That's good.
okay.
yeah, man.
Okay, so does anybody have any suggestions?
I just had a quick follow-up on the old topic of Russia, and then I'm gonna move on. You mentioned, Mike, that there's these 2 empires, or there's actually more than 2. There's Turkey, there's China, there's many empires in the world. everybody's playing the realistic game, except for the U.S. And the spheres of influence are a reality. You can't. That's the point that really irks me the most when I hear politicians and even some academics just dismiss it like spheres of influence is 19th century. It's not 19th century. Like every single country has a sphere of influence. Every single man and woman has a sphere of influence. Is an innate, kind of a thing. You can't really dismiss it. It's there. And deal with it, or you can, So anyway, so that's the part about international politics, and then the thing about the situation. I heard a speech about the guy who wrote "Listen, Liberal." Assessment of the Democratic Party of the U.S. today, and he's basically saying that class of people in the U.S., which is called the professional class, there used to be working class. There was always the professional class actually, but it was mostly Republican back in the day. The Democrats have basically placed all their bets on the professional class, which the metropolitan areas, New York, LA, etc., Dallas, and that's how they got their last couple of elections, and turning to be a losing streak. Interesting.
Let me ask you. The Thomas Frank, you said that was from the Listen Liberal book, right? Okay, that's one that I found out about from Jimmy Dore.
The book, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's on my that's my next book I want to read, because I think that I keep hearing references to Thomas Frank, and I like everything I've heard about it. So thanks for bringing that actually up to the rest of the chat, because I think that could be.
It is a great book.
See, yeah, another person that read it. Damn it, I'm gonna have to get this book.
And Capital.
Yeah, I'm hearing so much references to it, and I haven't read that one yet. So thank you for reminding me and bringing this back to my attention, because yeah, I need more reading materials. I haven't read something in a while, actually, since I've been out of school. So I'm down for that again. So thank you for that.
Always happy to provide reference.
I appreciate it. Okay, anything else that anybody wants to provide their input for or talk about?
How do you feel about them attacking Nina Turner about telling them to stop talking about Russia?
I will be doing a segment on that this week, most likely. Yeah, there's a lot of people that get attacked, and none of them piss me off as much as when Nina Turner is attacked, because she's like, she's a god to me, and I've put her so high on a pedestal that I'm like,
I agree.
I love Nina Turner. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about what she talked about, and I'm gonna try to go through and find all the attacks. So if you guys can find like an article that summarizes the attacks, then feel free to tweet me them or actually please tweet me them at Twitter, and anything in particular, because that really pissed me off, because she's making a point that's so common sense that anyone who disagrees with it, I just have no respect for them, because what she's saying is right. Finding out, the conclusion of this Russia investigation, we don't give a shit. We're all dealing with real issues, everyday issues. My student loan debt, even if I decide if I'm able to, I don't know, I haven't gone through it yet and made my payment. If I can apply that 12.5% cap, that's still a metric fuck ton of money. Finding out Russia isn't going to help me there. Exactly. Finding out, the end of, the Russian debacle isn't going to bring back the people lost due to healthcare. They didn't have insurance. Like, I talked to someone, and I'm actually going to be putting up the video in a couple of months. I've been in contact with this couple, very grassroots. Their daughter died because she didn't have access to healthcare, and I recently had like a 3-hour conversation with them over Skype, and that she just told the whole story. And I'm basically just giving her the channel to just tell her story the way she wants to tell it, because it's been covered in news stories, and basically they said that they were trying to blame her daughter for it, when it was very, very clear that it was a case of someone who didn't have insurance got denied and discriminated against because they didn't have insurance. So I hear about people like that who tell me that story, and it's like I can't even like deal with the Russia situation. It pisses me off. And you make such a good point, Angel. I'm really glad you brought that up about the Russia thing. How, we're talking about Russia and then berating them for it, but we're still obsessed with it too. But, for different reasons, of course. Yeah. The Nina Turner thing really pissed me off, to get back to your question. Nina Turner is literally one of the most purest people in terms of politics. Like, if there's no purity test that Nina Turner couldn't pass.
Exactly.
She knows, she grew up, in poverty. She's with the community, she's with grassroots organizers. So for her to get demonized, I feel like that's like a special level of fuck you to us, as progressives. Yeah. It's just not okay at all. So I'm going to go through and try to find all the different attacks. But yeah, that definitely rubbed me the wrong way, to say the least. And I have a lot to say about that. I'm kind of in the process of preparing for the next episode. And I'm very angry, to say the least.
So it'll be a good one.
It'll be a good one. I'm trying not to make it a long segment. Everything I do is like over 15 minutes lately. That's like long and in-depth, and I'm trying to cut that back, but I can't help it, Anyone else want to say anything or ask anything, or wanted to share their views on something that just on your heart, or that you want to vent about?
While we're talking about books, I got this one. Socialism by Michael Newman.
Michael Newman, what's the title?
Socialism.
Socialism by Michael Newman. I'm going to actually type that out and put it in the chat so I can go back to it after we disconnect. Socialism.
And another book. Oh, shit. Night Soldiers by Alan Force.
Say that one more time, Cameron. I'm sorry.
Night Soldiers by Alan Force. Historical fiction book, about 500 pages. Pretty good, though.
Okay, Cameron, I have to ask, how in the hell do you find time to read all this for a high school and a college student?
No sleep.
You tell me.
No sleep.
No sleep.
That's a good answer. That's a really good answer. Okay, so can you tell me the author one more time of that?
Unforced. His name is F-U-R-S-T.
Well, I'll put the title and then I'll look up because I'm going to.
By the way, I loved the video, the takedown of Bill Maher. That was awesome. That was an awesome video. I hate him so much.
Technically grown cucumber.
Oh, I hate Bill Maher so much. I hate him.
Me too.
Oh, yeah,
what a horrible person.
Me too.
Mad props. Mad props for standing up to Bill Maher.
Yes.
Thank you.
You should include John Oliver and most of the nighttime comedians today. Like, just atrocious.
They're awful.
I'm so torn with John Oliver, though. I mean, I know he's completely, a corporatist and on the corporate bandwagon, but sometimes he does do episodes where, he's on the right side of things. 90% of the time, we all know he's speaking, for the corporations, but like the net neutrality thing, he did get people to crash the website, good, bad, or indifferent.
And what did it do? Let's see what it does.
Yeah, I mean, I believe he can start a conversation. Does he keep it going? And do I believe that there's any level of commitment with people who watch his show that are really like getting out there and doing something? No, but there are times where I think he can start a conversation, but it's up to us to keep it going. Like, he's definitely
I
not
completely
going
agree. Actually,
to keep it going.
I would completely agree. You're
I
100%
absolutely agree with you too. Yeah, because he really is someone who I was disappointed with him during the general because he did a segment where he was basically like he did a bullshit smear on Jill Stein
Oh,
that
yeah.
just it was so
That's when I stopped
disingenuous.
watching. Mhm.
Same here. But I mean, if you do go back through it, if he focuses on the issues, he's great. If he focuses on the politicians, he's horrible. So he did like a
Yes.
gerrymandering segment. He did a voter ID
That
segment,
was great.
net neutrality. So I mean, he really is a case by case basis. I think that his heart is in the right place, but he's kind of one of those go with the flow people where if, you know, he'll kind of, where's the wind blowing? Okay, so they all want Hillary. Apparently she won, so we have to go with Hillary, you know. So, I mean, I think that he's kind of more issue by issue, but there are some that are just so disingenuous. Bill Maher has become probably the worst now. I can't even handle him. I used to love his show. I cannot stand it. Every time I watch it, I get pissed off. So I can't even watch it.
And I love Cornel West too. I love him.
Oh.
I mean, so to watch that, I wanted to wring his neck. I can't stand him. I just can't with him.
Well, and it's like my whole thing was, you know, of all people, Cornel West. I mean, it's Cornel West. Like, you don't get to talk to Cornel West that way with the way that he did it. I mean, I'm going to say that Cornel West is above criticism because he's a Harvard professor. You know, that's different.
Of course.
But the way that he like grabbed his shoulder and looked him in the eyes, and
this is an important, close to your heart, an issue close to your heart. Oh, why? Elephant in the room much? Like, why didn't you ask any? It's just the way initially he even came off. Just no respect, none. It's unbelievable. His level of. Oh, he's just gross.
And to me, it came off that he didn't even give a damn about Black Lives Matter issues.
No.
This is what if I would ever be invited to the show, which I will never be invited, but if hypothetically speaking, I went on the Bill Maher show, he would bring up something about how Trump is trying to cut out LGBT rights. And he says, isn't this an issue that's important to you? Why didn't you vote for it? Like, that's basically what he do. He's a political opportunist, you know, and so it's like, fuck you, Bill Maher. So anytime he does that, I'm going to rail against him. And somebody like criticized me on Twitter saying, oh, you're trying to, you know, ride off of Bill Maher's coattails and, you know, criticize him for views or whatnot. It's like, I am criticizing him because I cannot shut up when I see, like, I'm screaming at my fucking computer as I'm watching his. I hate him so much now. Like, I don't even think if he did a 180, I still probably could never not hate him.
Yeah.
After
the damage is done.
The damage is done. You don't go that far down in becoming like a shill for the Democrat. Because I don't know if you guys saw, so Kyle of Secular Talk did a segment where Bill Maher before, he talked about how the Democratic Party needs their own version of the Tea Party. They need a left-wing party to kind of take over the Democrats and do what the Tea Party did for Republicans. And then once Kyle was one of the first to call him out, once he started to berate progressives on his show and showed the clips saying, motherfucker, you wanted a Tea Party on the left. You kind of have one now. Like, progressives are doing what the Tea Party did, but just on the right. And we're actually on the right side of the issues.
And with more people.
And with more people. And when you look at the polling, everything we're pushing for is majority popular with the exception of the death penalty. So it's like you got what you wanted, but now that you have what you wanted, you're angry and you're blaming us because apparently we are responsible for ending the election of Donald Trump. No, we put in our time. We did a lot. I talked to so many people that were working their ass off calling. I remember, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Richard Green. He's on the Benjamin Dixon show. He would share how many calls he made for Bernie Sanders. And he's like, I just reached my 1,000th call on Twitter. You know, he posted that on Twitter. And I'm like, people are putting in work. So how dare you blame us, you know, for this election after these people are working their asses off.
And I think that's even worse than the Russia narrative is the blame game. It's infuriating. Like, I hate having a conversation with someone and they're like, well, are you happy now? Are you happy? You should have voted. I'm like, no, I shouldn't have. Like, and I think it's, you know, Jimmy Dore that always says, like, I'm sick of taking crumbs. Or you might even say it too, like, no, I'm not going to settle for crumbs anymore. No, I'm sick of the lesser of two evils. And hey, let the cards fall where they may. And yeah, Trump sucks and he's horrible. I get it, but I would not have been happy with her either. So, and I didn't, I was not just going to settle this time around. I no longer will. I'm getting too old to settle. It's like, I can't settle anymore. So I think
we saw
you
what
talk
selling
about
got
voting
us.
your conscience. If you're going to do it, do it. If more people actually had the balls to do it, it would make a difference. But people are so afraid to do it because they think there's only two parties. That's it. Pick a side. You don't have to pick a side, have some balls and stand up and say, no, how about neither? If someone puts some crap on your plate and you don't like anything on it, are you just going to go pick around and be like, oh, no, you don't like it. You don't like it. But say something, stand up, take a stand. People just want to stand on the side. We're too far gone to stand on the sidelines. You have to say something. You have to speak up.
If I had a applause button, I'd play it. That was
the
great.
problem with the mainstream comedians, and John Oliver sometimes, and Jesus, Samantha Bee, and all the others, like they just pick a side, they're basically propagating divide. They're propagating divide within a society, and one of them has the balls to take a stand of any sort. And you mentioned that they are just following the wind, going with the flow, but I'm not sure that they're reading it correctly, that they're reading it really bang on. So
that's a great point.
Dave Chappelle, like there's a few comedians today kind of honest. And Joe Rogan to an extent, like Bill Burr, the great ones a long time ago. But like even Dave Chappelle gets in trouble today for being like establishment kind of policies. Like it's just ridiculous.
That's such a good point because Dave Chappelle did take a lot of heat and whatnot, and I don't even remember what the statement was that he said about Trump. It was something that was just benign, that
give him a chance.
Oh yeah, something like that. Yeah, and it wasn't even like, well, is that really so unreasonable? I mean, most people don't like Donald Trump in the country. That's statistically, if you poll people, most people don't like Donald Trump, even though he was the president. But I mean, like, give him a chance. That doesn't offend me. that doesn't offend me at all. You know what I mean?
But you guys live in a country of safe spaces and bubbles. You can't have offense. Like that's the crazy thing. Like that's the caricature. Like what the hell happened? Like, to me, I don't understand. Like, why is everybody so like
But I think there's a difference between being politically correct and just having no balls. I mean, you can be politically correct because as a human being, you should know right from wrong. You should know if something you're going to say is going to offend someone or it's just the wrong thing to say. Like Trump doesn't know the difference, right? He just says whatever he says. Exactly. Right? They are.
It's much more complicated today to be politically correct.
You're right. They've stretched it too thin.
Like you have to go to university basically to be politically correct.
Exactly. You're right. They've stretched it so thin. You can't be offended by everything. You can't be offended by someone's opinion. I mean, so everyone's entitled to their opinion, and the fact that everyone is offended by it, it's mind-boggling. I'm not offending you personally. What I believe, how does what I believe affect you personally? If it can't change your life, then I'm sorry, then shut up. You may not like what I say or you may not like what I believe in, but I can't affect your life, or nothing that I push for or say or do can affect the outcome of your life in any way. So just shut up and go sit down somewhere. It's sickening.
I think the bottom point is that you have to be intellectually honest, right? I mean, every opinion has some basis behind it. To rely on that basis. And if you can intellectually be honest with yourself, you can learn something new, or maybe might change, right?
Exactly.
So the whole point is like not to get stuck in those politically, like, Republican, Democrat kind of, or whatever. right?
Yeah, you don't want to put
Exactly.
yourself in an echo chamber to where you're only hearing your own voice. So yeah, I think that I hate that whole, to bring up safe spaces that, to stifle debate. I think we have to talk about things that are really, that make us feel uncomfortable, that, might offend us. That's part of growing. You know what I mean? I don't think that is a battle that is even worth having. Why shut down debate? Let's talk about things. Let's hash it out. I think that that's really important. And let's stop getting offended for literally every single thing. We get offended for people before they've even responded, to something. I think it was to bring up Dave Chappelle again. Tim Black did a really great segment. It was before I saw Dave Chappelle's new comedy special, and he talked about how people are offended because Dave Chappelle said a homophobic joke on the first part of his skit, and then I was like, "Oh boy, what is it?" So
Yeah,
Tim Black
about
did a great.
trans people.
Well, this is one about anti-gay people. It's because he used like a gay voice or something. Because I've seen one of his two. So the first part, he does like a gay caricature, like a gay voice, and I guess that was
his wife's friend or something. He's
right.
talking about.
Yeah. It's been a little bit, and that was apparently super offensive and homophobic. And it's like, why? I watched it and I laughed hysterically. I love Dave Chappelle. You know what I mean? It's like, let's not get offended before gay people even get to determine whether or not it's offensive. Yeah, it's like, I don't.
No,
give a
let me
shit.
talk for you.
Yeah, it's like I don't give a damn. I love Dave Chappelle. I'll come to Dave Chappelle's offense, and I will watch the second one. I think it's. I know after I found out about that, I did hear about he made a transgender joke, and people are angry at that now. So it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what it is, but I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna watch Dave Chappelle sober anyway. I'm gonna watch it when I'm drunk and can't even think. So.
And if you're going to a comedy show, it's freaking comedy. Why are you there if you're gonna get offended by everything people say? It's like,
right.
It's like when I read comments, like even on some of your videos or something, and people go on there just to leave negative comments. I'm like, maybe I'm old, but what the hell did you watch the video for if you were just going to come on to talk shit? Like, do you not have a life? Like, clearly you have to have way too much time on your hands to just watch people's videos, to pick them apart and talk shit about them.
They're like, this is now a part of social responsibility.
Yes.
As a responsible person, you have to call the shit out.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you get stuck in the troll traps too. That's hard because I've been caught in them where I want to go back and forth because I'm like, I just want this person to shut the hell up. But they're not going to, and they already trapped you, and it's too late. And no matter what you say, they're going to keep going, and you're going to leave pissed, and they're going to leave happy. So it's hard to find that space when to comment and when to walk away because it's tough. You're like, oh, I wish I knew where this asshole lived. You can get to that point sometimes, but they get you. Those trolls will get you.
I honestly think that people that are basically cannot resist this public outrage, either online trolling or in real life, screaming and punching or whatever they want to do. I honestly think that they're not happy, like there's something like that. So, yeah, there's many reasons why they're not happy. I agree, absolutely, but it's not something that you can do.
True.
You can't scream somebody into submission.
Yeah, unless they're your kid.
There you go.
And even that doesn't work every time. It has consequences.
True.
And to bring up the getting offended thing, it's Dave Chappelle. Like I was shocked that people were. Dave Chappelle is he's known for being offensive. But the thing about Dave Chappelle is he doesn't leave anyone out. Like he doesn't target certain groups. Like he's not just hammering away at gay people. Dave Chappelle is he made a name for himself for just being extreme and funny, and that's why he's popular. So that was interesting. If you guys haven't seen the Tim Black segment on it, I would advise you to watch it because Tim Black you could just tell he's done with the bullshit. He was watching. He's like, man. I don't know. It just hurt. You get, you know, there's certain times when you just don't have much to say, but you still want to talk about it. But you know, it's good just to get on camera and just, what the fuck, guys. So that, yeah, that was a good thing to bring up.
Deficit of comedians.
Absolutely.
There's a real deficit of comedians.
Look who we're stuck
not just
with.
in the U.S. I think it's everywhere. France, comedians, you know, but it's slim pickings today.
Maybe they're afraid to. People, it's like a business. They decided maybe I don't even want to deal with the bullshit, so they don't even do it anymore. It's like, who wants to deal with that? The backlash and the bullshit.
Look at the big ones like Jerry Seinfeld and a couple others. They're just like they don't even want to come to certain events.
Do live
right?
shows.
And Jerry Seinfeld isn't even someone that is offensive, you know.
I can't understand at all how Jerry can be offensive. I can't comprehend.
I don't know. I don't think he's funny. I'm sorry. I know people love him.
I never watched Seinfeld.
I actually agree with you completely. I think Jerry is not funny at all. He's
I don't get it.
Superficial. He goes after.
We're gonna piss off so much people, but I agree. I hate Jerry Seinfeld so much.
He talks about nothing.
Nothing.
He talks about like airport queues and restaurant queues, you know, and like, you know, burgers and whatever, hot dogs. Like
Safe space comedy.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part. How can he feel uncomfortable?
And the comedians who I used to like, or who I used to love, I can't stand now. The biggest example is Louis C.K. I loved him before.
Oh.
He basically just turned into a shill for Hillary Clinton. She's the best I would opt for. It's like, really, Louis? Really? Really? She's the best you would hope for? Really? There's a million different politicians or a million different people you could think of. She's the best. If you could have anyone in your mind, that's the person who you would come up with. Really? I mean...
It was also interesting.
I personally am not sure about him. I think he might be a decent person. I think he's a decent person. I think maybe he's like. I agree. I understand what you're talking about. I've heard him, but I'm not sure that he is full gone. Like what's his name? The guy who does documentaries.
Michael Moore.
Michael Moore. Like, he's gone completely crazy.
Yeah, he has.
Oh, the other thing that was interesting was even when, I don't know, people like my family would say, oh, I wish Jon Stewart was more active in the 2016 presidential stage and was sort of helping Hillary out. And I went to them and went, wait, you did see the interview where he literally said she is not a great candidate. There are some major problems that we need to address with her. She's not likable. And everyone seems to gloss over and think that he was far more in her camp than he ever was.
Yeah, he was more realistic, and he did, like, there was a time where he tried to defend Hillary Clinton, where he took like one example that people were calling out Hillary Clinton for in terms of like Clinton Foundation corruption, and he said, well, this is actually a different, you know, this isn't corruption. There's an explanation for it. And he was right in that instance, but there's about 900,000 other instances that, he disregarded. So I kind of felt like he knew that he was being disingenuous, or maybe he didn't. But I mean, he disappointed me, but I think that he's not far gone. And I do agree with you about, Louis C.K. not being far gone too. I think he made that comment and didn't really think too much about it. But it was very dumb and it did piss me off. But his last special wasn't very good anyway. So I'm not, no love lost there. Looks like Lisa joined. Lisa,
Yes, I'm back.
How are you doing? Did you want to jump in and or bring up anything that you would like us to address?
I just got back on after 20 minutes, so I missed a lot. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're okay. We've been kind of jumping back and forth.
I mean, okay. I guess I might have a little bit different slant on things. I just really feel that, we really need to think about the fact that we have two classes. You know, we've got an international working class and an international capitalist class. And I know a lot of people just tend not to think that way. They tend to think, oh, you know, more nationalistically. And we just need to kind of burst those boundaries and think more on a holistic level. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're saying something
Lisa, but
that
that's
sounds
actually
humanistic.
exactly what Thomas Frank was talking about, you know?
Like I said, I just hopped on, so I missed a bunch of stuff. So what are you talking about?
So he brought up Thomas Frank. He's the author of a book called Listen Liberal that a lot of people are kind of reading. I haven't read it yet. But well, I can't explain it, but if you wanted to explain it.
Basically, what Lisa says is the international capitalist class is the professional class. It's the people who go to you know, good universities and get you know, good degrees, and then they join the international class because they can go anywhere in the world, and their profession is in demand. So that's the professional class. That's the new globalist. If you want to put a label at it, you know, it's a globalist class.
Right. I mean, yeah. I guess I'm thinking more economically. I mean, like economics, basically. I'm not thinking so much as you know, education, but more of, you know, how much wealth certain people have. And, you know, there's some very small amount of people on this planet that have obscene amounts of wealth, and they're controlling everything.
Right.
That's kind of what I'm talking about. And people in America, they just get really caught up in personalities and things like that with politicians, and oh, you know, this person's promising this and this person's promising that. You know, I've been on this earth for several years, and I've seen this kind of shit happen before. And you know, politicians are really good at promising things, and there's always like a new crop of young people that kind of say, oh yeah, let's go with that person. Oh, he's promising this and he's promising that, and yeah, you know, let's follow this leader. And you know, basically,
Lisa,
these people are just bought and sold.
Lisa, I can suggest a great short discussion for you. Actually, just aired today. Carnegie, and you can YouTube it. You can just search YouTube for Carnegie and then corruption, and it's called Corruption: The Operating System. They basically describe a system that is perpetuated. It's a network. It's a network system, basically. So you can call it kleptocracy, whatever you want, but based on networks, and these networks are entrenched in every nation, basically, and they're multinational. They're international, and these networks have.
Oh,
you know,
crap.
Infrastructure.
No.
You can.
All right.
No, it's. I'm not saying this. You can just watch. You can just watch the Carnegie video. Like it's. Like I just watched it like 3 hours ago.
Hey, you said it's a.
You can make your own opinion.
I'll write that in the chat so that way, if just in case she got disconnected, it was a Carnegie.
Yeah, Carnegie discussion just today. It's called Corruption: The Operating System. It's on Honduras and South American countries, as well as the U.S.
That's interesting, actually.
There's also another great book about the divide between, you know, the super rich and the poor called Capital.
It's
I can't think of the author right now, but it's a economist that did a study since 1977, and how the gap has become so extreme between the super rich and what is now essentially working poor. You know, how extreme it's become, you know, over those years. It was a lengthy book and has a lot of graphs, but it really opens your eyes to just how decimated we've become as a country in regards to there is no middle class, that it's not even obtainable with the way the government works now. It isn't obtainable. Like I said, it was long, but it was very eye-opening, just how he explained, you know, just with laws, literally with all the laws that they've passed, how they've been able to just create this uber class of people and literally leave the other, you know, 98% in the dust. It was very eye-opening. It's scary. It's scary because how do you turn around that many years of, you know, of all these laws that have been passed to just help the wealthy and do nothing for the other, you know, people of the country? It's scary.
Did you want to?
Yeah, actually, on that point, on that point, just very quickly, is that if you have a system where 1% controls, you know, whatever 99% of decision making, sustain. I mean, I can't imagine that 1% of population can feasibly, I mean, if you can imagine it in your mind, can control. So that's the interesting part actually about the talk that I just saw today, is that it's not just the 1%. I mean, the 1% are the top part of the networks, so to speak. But the networks, they stretch far deeper, right? Even in places you would never probably guess to think, like criminal world, gangs, you know.
Right. This kind of reminds me of an international governance class that I took, and you know, networks was a huge focus, and it was really, really complex, you know, to talk about everything. And I think that kind of what Lisa was touching on is, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she brings up an interesting point to me about the how what we're talking about in this country with kind of like the elites and the oligarchs taking over, you know, it's not unique to the country. So I think that kind of what she was maybe trying to say is maybe we should broaden out and, you know, talk about how, you know, the same power dynamics that are at play here are also, you know, they're at play even just internationally when you look at, you know, the WTO and how it controls countries, and, you know, it basically forces them to adopt neoliberal economic policies if they want to get certain things. So it is interesting because if you do look at the United States, it really is a microcosm of like the rest of the world. And that sucks because we do so many things wrong. You know, we're not a good model. And Lisa dropped out too. Crap. Well, hopefully Lisa can, you know, if I'm building a straw man, then please feel free to let me know in the comments, Lisa. But thank you for joining in. But yeah, no, to get to her point kind of about, because I don't want to ignore her point about that, you know, the way that the oligarchy controls workers and how you have kind of two different economic classes where they're all exploited everywhere in, you know, all different countries. And you kind of see the same thing, which is why you see kind of this domino effect. You see, you know, a surge of right-wing populism and then left-wing populism. A phenomenal example is Latin America, how you've seen, you know, they were basically, unions were demolished. And then you saw this surge of left-wing populism and socialism that the United States desperately wanted to, you know, push down, which is why they kept, you know, they kept their hands in what was happening in Latin America for so long. And so I think that Lisa does make an important point, but I'm not sure exactly. It's a very complex discussion, you know, but it does get into some really deep stuff. And I think that you were right to bring up networks, because I think that networks is, it is interesting. And I like that you kind of tied it to like criminals and gangs and stuff. Because when I think about networks, I kind of think about it in the more like governance sense, and it's confusing as shit, but it's interesting. Do you want to add anything?
But listen, I just want to add that networks has a very human face. Networks are very human based, so they're based in reality. And you know, like institutions, they're bureaucracy based. This is bureaucracy. It's not human.
Right.
They actually have a very different kind of resilience. Like, you know, it's
right.
Networks is my brother, my nephew, your friend's brother, etc. It's very personal.
That's interesting. Did you take a class on organizations or governance by chance?
No, I studied biochemistry.
No shit. Okay, because this is like very similar to the discussions that we had in a class that I took on international governance and organizations, and this shit went right over my head. But it's really interesting. Like the readings and stuff on it, it's just fascinating. But it's such a big topic that it's so difficult to like grasp. And I think that the way you just explained it is really interesting about networks having like this human face. You know, because for me anyways, I certainly think about networks in a much broader sense. But I think that that's such a great simplistic way to put it. You know, it's just humans, you know, brothers. So I'm glad you said that. Actually, I wish you said that to me a year ago when I was taking that class. I still did pretty good, but I mean, that shit really hadn't, you know, my brain locked up. But that's interesting. Okay, so
there's always postdoctorate, man.
Oh, fuck that. I don't know if I could do that. I do know a couple people who are considering it though, and yeah, that's I can't even imagine that. So if anybody wants to add anything else, feel free to let me know. If not, then we will leave it right there, I think. Does anybody want to add anything really quickly or have any lasting thoughts?
Michael?
Yeah?
Look at this book. A good book.
Say that one more time, Cameron. I'm sorry. You were kind of breaking up. You were recommending a book.
The good book. A Humanist Bible.
The good book.
A Humanist Bible.
Oh, it's called the Humanist Bible?
A Humanist Bible. Mm-hmm.
Title in the chat. And I just butchered that. I kind of feel like I should already know about that, but I'm glad that you brought that to my attention. But I haven't done much reading lately. But yeah, thanks for the recommendation. All right, guys. Well, if there's nothing else, then we'll go ahead and disconnect the chat. For those that aren't watching this live, you will be able to see this at the member page. This will also be up on the Patreon page too. Actually, I think whatever I posted for you to join should just convert into the video. So yeah, does anybody have anything else they want to add real quick?
Thanks for the discussion.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike.
Hey, thank you all for being brave enough to get on camera. I really appreciate it. I think you guys have fascinating insight, and I really appreciate you guys coming on and talking. This was really great discussion.
Have a great night, everyone.
You too, guys. You take care.
Bye.
Hey, thank you, buddy. Thanks for joining.
Good night, guys.
Everyone be safe and have a good night.
You too. Take care, Cameron. All right. See you later, Sebastian.
Later.